Hello everyone, I'm doing a video on the actual video that's regarding Wes Huff and Billy Carson. So I've been skimming through it so far. A lot of it's just, introductions, and they're talking about Jesus. Now, as you know, you cannot double check Jesus, whereas older stuff, the Great Flood, etc., that predates Jesus, you can double check with obviously mainstream, and you can also check that there is evidence of a flood, etc., which I've already done. Feel free to watch my videos. And also you can double check it with the Anunnaki text, whereas Jesus, there's nothing. You just keep going back to the Bible pretty much. And of course, I don't talk about anything to do with double checking stuff that I can't double check, because there's no point. I could say one thing, you could say another, and we'll be at it all day. So as you see here, they're talking about Jesus. Listen.
Right now, it's like I know what I'm doing, but I'm just curious.
So the Gospel of Jesus' wife doesn't actually mention. So oftentimes what happens is that...
So I'm going to skip ahead until I find something that's actually of relevance that can actually be double checked, because there's no point in, as I say, doing something for no reason. They've still not got to anything that can't be double checked at the moment, but listen to this and then I'll just tell you something where this guy's wrong.
However, the reason we know it's also not legitimate is because even though the manuscript, the papyrus that it's on, was carbon dated to the 4th century.
Okay, I do hate people that go on about carbon dating. So if you actually look, it's not actually even 100% accurate. In fact, when it comes down to, only 50% of corpses can be dated, and so on and so on. So, okay, so I'm up to a part now where they're talking about the Enuma Elish, which is a tablet or series of tablets in the British Museum. And Billy's referencing, I'll let you play a little bit.
Text discovered in the Library of Ashurbanipal. And the summary of it is that it really gives us an account, which is crazy, an astronomical account of the creation of our solar system. It talks about planets and moons gaining specific orbits around the sun.
So he's actually correct there. And it goes on, he carries on about the fact that the one in the British Museum, the Enuma Elish, talks about Marduk smashing into Tiamat as opposed to Nibiru, or Nibru, as it's also known. And just for religious people, if you're watching this and who's now thinking, you do realise that the British Museum also has a tablet that Marduk, because Marduk was given the rank of 50 when El, or Enlil, as you may know him, gave up on hero on Earth and let Marduk take over. And so that's when the pantheon of gods changed from multiple gods in, as you probably guessed, Rome, Greece, Sumerian, Babylonian, etc. Everywhere went down to one god, and that was Marduk. And the tablets in the British Museum, if you would like to bother, but you guys won't bother researching that, so that you can then see how we end up with one god, whereas obviously in their image, Genesis 1:26, and the fact that there's gods is mentioned 300 times in the Bible, the original Bible, not the version's been changed. So, yeah, there you go, just giving you a bit of clue there. I'm going to carry on watching this and then I'll interject. So I skipped along a little bit because that did go on for a little bit of time. And what we've got is this gentleman, Wes, asking Billy for the verbatim, in other words, because Billy sort of alluded to, even though I did skip bits of it because it did go on for a bit. Billy was pretty much saying that it's almost word for word, and so again, this guy's asking for the evidence that it's word for word. So I'm just going to play a bit. I haven't actually gone any further than this. So
I'm just curious, when you say that there are not just parallels, but there's actual copying, looking at Genesis chapter 1 and 2, where the creation story is summarized in the Bible, what are the actual kind of parallels there that you're looking to? Because as someone who's read both, I not only do I not find parallels, I actually, and this is the majority of ancient Near Eastern scholarship with me, think that Genesis chapter 1 is actually an apologetic against documents like the Enuma Elish. So what?
Okay, I can actually answer that. So all you have to do is go to my YouTube channel and look for the one that's called Alien Bible.
If I may just break this down to show you, the Bible has taken the start of our solar system some 4.6 billion years ago, then added stories from just 450,000 years ago. I'll show you why. This part belongs with the newer stories, not 4.6 billion years ago. 4. And God seeth the light that it is good, and God separateth between the light and the darkness. 5. And God calleth to the light day, and to the darkness he hath called night. And there is an evening, and there is a morning. Day 1. Have a listen to the Moorhen tablets. You'll see this part was talking about the Anunnaki when they arrived here on Earth, 4.6 billions later than the forming of the sun and planets.
Their first day on Earth included both an evening and a morning. By daylight, Ea had already considered the occurrences. He was considering how to divide the oceans. Engur fashioned the master from the beautiful waters to provide drinking water. He walked to the snake pond with Alalu, thinking about its warm waters. Nasty snakes were spreading in the pond. Engur informed Ea of this. Ea then reflected on a large amount of rainfall he had collected in the marshlands. He named the reed thicket he was directing and delegated wetland maintenance to Enbilulu.
And in fact, 4 of the Rothschilds family works in Columbia University, if you want to go and do the research. And so with these tablets, you've actually got a better, clearer understanding. Now, of course, the other tablets that went missing was what they call Eridu Genesis. The original one, they actually had the creation of man in those tablets. So this would be the world's most important information, would you not agree? Funny enough, it went missing. I wonder who owns the museums or who funds the museums, etc., etc. So now you get an idea that why we're struggling. Not too much though, because if you go and look up Enki and Nimna, which I'm just about to show you right now, remove the carbon dating, Enki and Ninma. So one of the first. That's how you spell it. One of the first, there it is. There it is. One of the first languages ever, and they're literally talking about genetically modifying a creature. You can go read this in their image. This predates the Bible. So, which is it? Is it an almighty being? Bearing in mind, ladies and gentlemen, the first buildings on this planet was not for your almighty being. It was for Enki. That's a fact. Second building, Enlil. Third building, Ninurta. You get the idea. Fourth building, fifth building, all in Mesopotamia. So God's going, hang on a minute, guys. I told you to worship me, and you're building these buildings for these Anunnaki. Where's my building? Funny enough, he didn't actually ever get one, an almighty being. If you actually do the research, you'll find that the only building that would have come close would have been the one under Temple Mount, which was for Yahweh, which was Marduk anyway. Feel free to watch my amazing documentary on who Yahweh really was. So anyway, here it's talking about the creature that you bring into existence, impose on him the work of carrying baskets. This is, again, translations. And look, they fouled 6 times. Each one of these creatures that they created fouled. This man constantly opened his eyes. The next one had no genitals. Next one, there's the one with no genitals. They called it an eunuch, and you can guess where the eunuch word comes from now. Oh, come on, guys, you're not that thick, are you? It's literally all here, talking prior to the Bible. So one of them's right. Which one? I know which one I'll go with. Bearing in mind we've got fused chromosomes, ladies and gentlemen, which is funny that we have fused chromosomes, isn't it? Done in a lab. Now, you'll say, mainstream will say, oh, it's genetic mutation. The amount of coincidences you're going to have to keep going through to try and justify that it's an almighty being and that it's accident and that we've got this and we've got that, and yet literally here in the Oxford University translations it's talking about, I declared the fate for the first man with the weak hands, I gave him daily bread. They actually give him daily bread. This in this line here it talks about somewhere, I can't find it off the top of my head, but that's where you first get your word daily bread from, by the way. So in your Bible, when you're talking about the hymn, Our Father who art in space, bearing in mind space has been proven by myself with evidence that heaven is space. Our Father who art in space, give us our daily bread. And it says it here prior to the Bible. So which one's right? Which one do you think's right? A little bit of logic here. Either the Bible that came after, or someone genetically. You've got to remember that only a handful of people would have been able to read and write back then. Handful of people, and they're talking about what they're going to do and how they basically created these creatures to help them do the work for them, which was, and look, pinched off the clay, predates the Bible. Come on, guys, they used that clay. If you go by the Moorhen translations, they used the clay for because they believe that their sterile or non-sterile tools, where there was mixing stuff, was probably the problem. So they ended up using Earth's own materials, such as clay, to build like the beakers or whatever it was that they was using. So anyway, that's that part. Regarding Genesis 1, you got to remember Genesis 1 amalgamates 3 different timelines. So first it's talking about 4.6 billion years ago, which is where the planets were forming. Then it talks about the Anunnaki coming here, which would have been, as I say, in Genesis. Look up Eridu Genesis, as well as other tablets. And then it talks about creation of man, which happened another 140 odd thousand years later. So Genesis actually mixes 3 different things. Go watch the Alien Bible, as I say. So let's have a listen to what he says to the reply to Billy.
Is a parallel. The only reason I highlight that is that if you're making this the argument, because if you brought it up, and I mean this with all due respect, there are superficial parallels. I would agree. The separation of the water, the concept of the earth being formless and void. That's also in the Enuma Elish. However, I think all the other details, it isn't the details that make the difference.
So I've just showed you the tablets in the translations in Oxford University of creating a first human, and you're saying that there's no parallels. Yeah, you're avoiding that one. You either don't know about it or you're avoiding it. That's why you're struggling with the wording.
And if we're looking at not the superficial crossovers, but the actual themes and concepts of what it's saying, you don't have a creation within 7 days. You don't
have a creation in 7 days. Okay. So here in my 4-hour video, when this guy says there's no reference to the 7 days creation, or 6 days. Do you know what the funny thing is, guys? Hawaii had different plants and animals on it, etc. And Hawaii was a newer island because it was volcanic, very, very rarely new compared to the billions of years old how old Earth is. So anyone think that God came back and thought, do you know what, that's a really nice little island, I'm going to put some brand new creatures on there? Seriously, guys, come on.
So let's move on to the 6 days of creation. Now here is translations of the original tablets that base on Genesis 1, but from the original tablets. You can find this PDF online, and it's called The Cuneiform Origins of Genesis. In other words, Genesis copied the cuneiform. And date for the Genesis 1. Now it goes through a hell of a lot, which is great, and it goes through it very well. But we're interested in this particular part here. So Genesis talking about the 7th day of creation. And the basic story goes that God did many things for the first 6 days and then rested on the 7th. So we'll just read Genesis 2:1-4, and it says, "And on the 7th day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the 7th day from all the work that he had made. And God blessed the 7th day and sanctioned it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made." Now, if you actually read this version, which is the translation version, it says, "And on the 7th day God completed his teaching," which is kind of weird because God would have been the only one around at that point, unless it was Enki, "and ceased on the 7th day the teaching that he had been doing." So Sitchin's version in his books is that for the first 6 days they catalogued. So this is when the Anunnaki, the first 50 Anunnaki arrived here on Earth. They catalogued various different things. The first one, water, for example, on day 1, plants on day 2, animals on day 3.
The rest of this video is many hours long. You can watch.
Sorry, yeah, that was an example of the date of what they said that they did on each day. So you can go watch that full video if you want.
At that time.
So was this text discovered that makes it parallel to Genesis? Was this?
Which makes it parallel to Genesis. Right, okay, let me just type in something. Cuneiform parallels to the Old Testament. Translation book, by the way. And you can actually go and read that. Hopefully this is the PDF version. Probably not that one. You can find, yeah, there it is. Okay, so basically you can go along, and so basically the reason why this person back in 1912 wrote cuneiform parallels to the Old Testament is because where they're saying that there's no connection between Sumerian tablets, for example, Babylonian ancient tablets that predate the Bible, and the Bible itself, just go read this book, 1912, from a translator of the ancient tablets. It's called Cuneiform Parallels of the Old Testament, and parallels being because, literally as this guy just said, so is there any parallels? Yes, sir, there is.
And what we see that is counter to that is that even, sure, there's superficial, divided the waters, but we find that in almost
okay, superficial. So hopefully you've just seen the book that I mentioned, the Alien Bible and the Enki and Nimna and the Eridu Genesis, where they're missing the first one. So yeah, plenty more than what you're aware of.
I just see.
So he says, I disagree with
if
this.
I have
Listen.
all these texts out, there's a lot of different information that you can see. There's a lot of it's been copied word for word into the biblical text.
See, it's not. So that's the problem. That's where all these religious people seem to think that Billy's totally been debunked, is because Billy made a mistake, and it is a mistake. That it's not, when you say a lot of the words are copied word for word, no, they're not. And also, don't forget, you can change the way that you read the Hebrew words, as I've already said. There's, for example, one word can mean 4 totally different things. So that, unfortunately, that's where Billy kind of went wrong a little bit.
You keep saying that God's a he.
Yep.
Okay, so he says God's a he. Bear that in mind, because in a moment he's going to then say God is genderless.
So where do you get that from?
Well, throughout both the Hebrew Old Testament and the Greek New Testament, you have the masculine singular pronoun used for God.
Singular. Okay, now there is also words for gods. 300 times, 150 knocked down. If you go read the Young's literal translation, it's 300 times. 1 in 4 pages. That's pretty impressive. So when you say it's singular, I will then say no. And you can't argue with that because you've got the words in there as gods. And don't say there's no words in God. There's gods in the Bible. There is words of gods, plural, in the Bible. So, and don't say it's the Trinity, because at one point in the Bible it says, thou shalt not worship, something that's similar to they shall not worship any other gods. So now what you'll probably do is, they're lesser gods. And make up a load of crap. No. No. The Anunnaki's race name was gods. So, and you can go watch my amazing documentaries that shows that. So, you're wrong there. Just because it says singular, it also says gods plural. So, I would debate you and say, no, which one? I will go with the gods. Bear in mind, Elohim is supposedly plural itself. So you saying singular, just by the definition of the word gods, is plural already.
And why is God a man? Where's the evidence of this?
Well, God isn't a man. See, within historical Christianity, we don't believe that God has a gender. However, the way that he has decided to reveal himself is through the masculine plural, and then ultimately by...
So, he's not... Earlier on, he agreed with Billy when Billy said, you call him a he. So he said yes. Now he's saying he's genderless. But to get round that argument, because he already said he was a he, he's saying that God identifies as a he, in which case, then he has a gender. You can't pick and choose, Wes. You cannot pick and choose how you want to debate an argument by picking what you think is going to be the best argument to have. You have to go with the evidence. So the reason why he is a he, if you're referring to, bearing in mind plural, Elohim, but even if the reason why you're going by he is because Enki was a he, Marduk was a he. There's only a handful of female Anunnaki mentioned. So, for example, Nimna, who became Ninharsag. You've got Ishtar, which was also Inanna, and so on. But there's not many of them. So they are mentioned in the Sumerian tablets, but of course in the Bible, not so much. Now, also, ancient priests are aware that God had a wife, by the way. If you want to go look up Dan McLaren's videos. I'm sure you'll be surprised that Dan McLaren, although he doesn't say that God or gods, because he even talks about them being plural, that gods were the Anunnaki, because obviously he spent his whole life talking about a religion. So obviously he can't go that far and turn around and agree that the things that he's talking about are the Anunnaki. But have a watch of Dan McLaren, very good guy, very logical, and won't do what this guy's done, where he is trying to shoehorn his argument so it fits. The reason why it is he is because Enki was the one that created us. I just showed you the information on that, on Enki and Nimna. And obviously there's tablets in the Columbia University as well, if you so wish to go and read. And then Marduk later on became the monotheistic god, which is why we end up with one god as opposed to the pantheon of gods that we had originally. So it's all there in black and white. So anyway, let's carry on.
By becoming a human in the person of Jesus Christ. So we don't believe that God has a gender.
So hang on a minute, let's go back to that. Sorry, I'm watching this for the first time.
Becoming a human is a gender. However, the way that he has decided to reveal himself is through the masculine plural, and then ultimately by becoming a human in the person of Jesus Christ.
So where does it say that? Let me have a look. Where does it say? I'm just going to ask ChatGPT. Sorry to ask ChatGPT, it's just it's a lot quicker than Googling it. Where does God say he is Jesus? Why didn't that type? Okay, so let's see where, if Wes is 100% correct. It says, John says, Jesus says, I and the Father are one. Now, to the words that it could have been, so for example, there's many different words. You could have I and the Father are one, or you could have I and the Father are united, or I and the Father are alike. You see where I'm going with this, guys?
You don't believe that God has a gender. However, the way that he has decided to reveal himself is through the masculine plural, and then ultimately by becoming a human in the person of Jesus Christ. So we don't believe that God has a gender. In fact, the fact that God creates humanity in his image, and he creates them male and female.
Okay, don't forget Elohim is gods, therefore plural, therefore male and female. And here is what the Anunnaki look like. Yes, we look like them in their image. Funny how Michelangelo painted a god with a beard, etc. And that's because the Anunnaki had a beard. You wonder where your god gets a beard from. So that's Enki, because of the water coming out. And that's Ninharsag. She actually birthed the first Adam. Not Adam. Adam, the name for Adam was Adapa. Go look up the Adapa story and you'll see. So there's male and female, and they do look like us. Now we know they look like us because when you actually start looking at other carvings of them, yep, bipedal, beards, the list, basically is you'd have to be a numpty to not grasp that that's actually, or some of these are AI images, but you'd have to be a numpty to say, okay, these are totally different from anything else. Of course, that's their home planet symbol, by the way. You'll see that on a dollar bill as an eagle. Whoopsie. Yeah, so, and of course, the Anunnaki talked about the hammer bracelet, which we only found out about 200 years ago. They called it the firmament because it locked, and that was the asteroid belt. So pretty impressive for an ancient race to know all of that when we only found out a couple of 100 years ago.
But he's still fully man and fully God. But God is spirit, and right? As the scripture says, we worship him in spirit and in truth. But nobody's arguing that.
Okay, so God is spirit. Show me the evidence, Wes. 100% evidence that spirits have no gender. So if God's a spirit, which is what you just said, I want the evidence that spirits have no gender. Just because we don't know that they have gender, obviously God isn't a spirit, God is the Anunnaki, but so I want to see the evidence that a spirit is genderless. Now, if a spirit was looking at us and didn't understand us, you know, maybe caught a glimpse of us like we would catch a glimpse of an orb. So if that orb was watching us, would the orb, you know, every now and then just catch a glimpse of us? Because obviously, you know, different light spectrums. So for example, we can't see infrared, we can't see ultraviolet. And if we're lucky, we can capture an orb because obviously frequency is not in our visual range. So it may work both ways. They may not be able to see. So would they class us as genderless if occasionally they just saw a glimpse of us? So I'm not genderless. I know my gender. So from a spirit's point of view, I may be genderless, but I have a gender. So they don't have the evidence because they can't grasp what a human does because they only catch a glimpse of it. So Wes, I would like to see the evidence, 100% evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get evidence that spirits are genderless. So anyway, there you go. So, and the reason why I do this is because I get so fed up with people saying, there was one of these videos where it says, we've got Billy Carson. Look, there's Wes Huff's own thing there. I debated Billy Carson, but he doesn't want you to hear it. You probably won't want to hear this either. This is just sad, you know, where they're trying to say that Billy's wrong. So, I don't know. Religious people will push that out. That's why Billy doesn't want to. You'll see these are religious people pushing these ones out. No one will bother pushing this out because normal people don't get as angry as religious people would to try and prove their point. Normal people that don't really care or even on the sideline wouldn't bother pushing this video out, but religious people will push your video out because Billy did make some mistakes. Yes, you know, I've done quite a few videos where I've showed errors in Billy's. This guy's going to get a good debunking. So who's ready for it? So this guy, people sent me this video. Let's have a look.
All the translations from Zechariah Sitchin are false.
Okay, that's wrong because Zechariah Sitchin said he never translated anything. In fact, they were already translated mostly before he was even born. If you care to look, for example, Cuneiform Parallels to the Old Testament, massive book, goes through loads of things, 1912, before Zechariah Sitchin was even born. And it talks about a lot of things in there, the translation. Now, the reason why it's called Cuneiform Parallels is because this guy back then worked out that, hang on a minute, this is not Sitchin, that it's a copy of, well, the old Bible is a copy of the older tablets. So this guy worked it out. I'm guessing you're religious and you don't want it to. So there's your first problem there, that Zechariah Sitchin didn't translate them and they're already translated.
Do I believe the Anunnaki story? Well, I know the Anunnaki story that is being portrayed out there by people like Zechariah Sitchin and Billy Carson is complete nonsense. And how do I know that? Because I know the original story.
So he holds up a book by Michael S. Heiser, who I have debunked with my eyes closed many, many times on TikTok. In fact, I also debunked him here on my YouTube video called, and you can go watch it, guys, Proof Anunnaki Were Here, by Our True History. So you'll see that Michael S. Heiser gets a thoroughly good debunking, as we say in the business. So just because you're holding up a book, does that mean you've got to be able to back that up? No, it just means that you've got a translation. So if you actually read that book, you'll find that there's nothing there that really backs anything up. Whereas unlike this guy who's showing his face, I don't show my face, I show evidence. That's the difference between me and everyone else. I actually show evidence. So this guy would need to be able to double check everything that he's saying here with evidence. And as you'll see in a moment, he can't do that. So in other words, it's just a religious person writing a book to try and debunk Zechariah Sitchin. In fact, Michael S. Heiser had a website called sitchiniswrong.com, which I've obviously debunked Michael S. Heiser. So, and when you realise where Michael S. Heiser actually worked and who funded that institution, yeah, it all goes back to the same old people.
The actual story from the Sumerian tablets, the Anunnakis were not aliens. They did not come down from heaven to earth in fiery rocket.
Okay, that's because you read that silly book. So if you actually go here in translations of tablets, and this is me showing you, not just showing you my face, this is when the fight on heaven happened. It's called Kingship of Heaven. And heaven is now space. We know that for a fact. Go watch my amazing documentaries. I went back through everything, and it turns out that heaven is the word for space. That's the reason why people go up into heaven and come back down, such as Ezekiel and Enoch, etc. They didn't need to die, and they didn't die. So it's space. Anyway, so here at the end of it, Alula gets defeated by Anu, and he goes down to Dark Earth, which is pretty impressive, because this guy's going to turn around and say that the Anunnaki came over from somewhere else on Earth. However, it's now saying going to the Dark Earth. Now, would you class Mesopotamia as Dark Earth? Of course not. Now, we can also go one step further to the Tale of Adapa, where Adam, as you know him, his real name was Adapa, go look it up, actually went to Nibiru and met with King Anu, and eventually at the end of it, where he wasn't eating because his dad Enki told him not to, so then King Anu says take him and bring him back to his earth. Pretty impressive, his earth, isn't it? Funny that. So let's have a listen now to this next cock and bull story.
And there was none of that.
There was, because I've just showed it.
Settlers that came in over the...
And by the way, that was other people translation, not Zechariah Sitchin, so you're wrong there as well still. So listen to this. He's saying they came over the mountains.
Taurus Mountains from Eurasia, from Europe. There have been archaeological finds like the Tartarian tablets, Proto-Sumerian.
Okay, so we actually, so regardless of whether that's correct or not, we actually have the oldest settlement is in Eridu. Funny, the Anunnaki say that they settled in Eridu. Now, he didn't mention Eridu, and that's 5400 BC, which is actually one of the earliest settlements. Now, you would need to be able to show me the settlement for your king, princes and kings, which was what the Anunnaki, two main Anunnaki were, Enlil and Enki. You would need to show me that there was some evidence that they were there where you're talking about before they went to the Middle East, for example, Eridu or Mesopotamia, and you've got zero evidence that they were there. Zero evidence. Just because you've got, I can show you cave art over in America, it doesn't mean that the Anunnaki were there. So again, you need evidence. You can't just point to something and hope that it sticks. So there's no evidence whatsoever that they were where you said they were prior. Now, if that actually said Enki on it, fine, but it doesn't. So that's you're just making up crap.
That predates the Sumerian in Sumer.
And it doesn't... Well, Sumeria is different from Eridu. You've got to remember the Anunnaki came here and stayed at Eridu first, and then they moved to Mesopotamia, and then after the Great Flood is only when they started to teach people. Now, we do have evidence of the Great Flood. Watch my amazing documentaries. So after that's when civilization started, which was after... the Great Flood, which was after 10,000 BC, and that's when we got everything taught to us. Funny that, isn't it? How we get everything taught to us by the Anunnaki in Sumer: money, laws, marriage, agriculture, textiles. The list just goes on. Trust me, you can look it up. And it's funny how the place that you said they come from didn't have that. So this guy is completely either brainwashed or lacks logic.
Mesopotamia, and it comes from the area around Hungary, Romania, and...
So, show me where they had money, textiles, etc. in before Sumer. Sumer was the first place that we had all of that. And by the way, the tablets talk about that the Anunnaki said that they split up the territories and they started to teach people in Sumer first. So if they can do that, why didn't their civilization over the mountain have that? Too easy. And we also have tablets in the British Museum where Enki tells Noah to build the ark. We also have tablets where it talks about the Anunnaki creating a species here to help them carry their baskets, which is pretty impressive for people coming over the frickin' mountain. Bearing in mind that would probably have been one of the first languages that people could ever read or write, and they're writing about creating a new species. Called Enki and Nimna. Go read that, or the tablets in Columbia University, which are owned by the Rothschilds, which I'm sure you don't even bother researching that, because it seems that you're not actually showing evidence like I show evidence, you just seem to talk. So there's there was a Eridu Genesis, which now, funny enough, the first part of that, which was the creation of man, so although we've got two already, there would have been another one, creation of man, in the Eridu Genesis. It disappeared. Funny that, isn't it?
Europe, in that region. They came down after a cataclysm. So
you've now got to show me this evidence of this cataclysm. So, ladies and gentlemen, this guy's going to tell us what the cataclysm was.
Something happened that wiped out civilization.
Something happened. That was his argument. That's it. Now, if I said that on my videos, something happened, I'll be crucified. Do you know who will crucify me? Me. Because I don't flaff around and make up crap.
That is actually in the story.
It's in the story, but I want the evidence. You can't just say stuff that's in a story. I need the evidence of this cataclysm that happened that made them move all the way to, as you say, Mesopotamia. But you've got nothing. No cataclysm, no evidence of their civilization before, no name to match them with, nothing.
They came down over the Taurus Mountains, came down in
You can keep saying that all you like, but I need the evidence.
Mesopotamia and started large-scale irrigation.
Funny that, large-scale irrigation, yet none where you said they were before that. Now, the Anunnaki did admit that they created the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. They did say that in their tablets, which is pretty impressive for a, dare I say, a nomad race after this cataclysm that happened. You know, we can just about create rivers now. We can just about repair potholes. And back then, with no tools, they created the Euphrates and Tigris.
Projects and farming projects, and the locals came to know them as the Anunnaki.
In fact, as I say, that we actually have tablets where they talk about genetically modifying a species here to create a new species. Go look up, everybody, Enki and Ninmah.
All the translations from Zechariah.
And that Enki and Nimna wasn't done by Zechariah Sitchin. It's in the Oxford University translations, and it's been peer-reviewed, etc. So, he's about to say Zechariah Sitchin's wrong, which, unfortunately, you are wrong, my sir.
Sitchin are false. That is,
so you're false because you made up crap loads of crap.
They have been disproven by an actual Sumerian scholar.
The only person that's disproven it was the guy that wrote the book, who's a religious person who writes other books, and I've debunked that guy with my eyes closed. So I'm running out of time, guys, but as you can see, too easy. Follow me. It's a lot easier than making up crap. I go by evidence clearly compared to other people.
If there is a message from them, is that they do want us to join with them eventually. But they want us to know we are children of the stars. We have been created and taken care of since the beginning of time.
Okay, so what she's saying is we have been created since, basically, taken care of us since the beginning of time. That doesn't work for me, unfortunately, because we, as a human species, and you shall carry on and talking about the human species as opposed to dinosaurs or anything else, bearing in mind humans have only been here a blip, a blink of an eye compared to every other species on this planet. So when she says that aliens created us from the beginning of everything, we've got actual records, written records of when humans were created, and that was because of the Anunnaki. So prior to the Anunnaki there were hominids, and prior to the hominids there was obviously other animals and all sorts of things. So for her to turn around and say what she just said, and I'm just going to play it one more time now that you understand where I'm coming from, because we've got records of things, and humans weren't here since the beginning of everything.
Children of the stars, we have been created and taken care of since the beginning of time.
Since the beginning, we haven't been. You know that. We all know that humans haven't been here since the beginning of the time. So for her to come out with that is unfortunately wrong. There is no such thing as ancient aliens, according to Michael Heiser, who is a Christian author and wants to sell you books about the Bible, but doesn't want to tell you about the tablets that predate the Bible, not just in Sumerian, but Akkadian, Assyrian, and a few other different languages that come prior to the Bible. But of course, the copies of the Bible copies these older texts, but of course he doesn't want to sell you those because he probably hasn't researched those. But he also tries to debunk Zechariah Sitchin, and poorly does it, because it's not just Zechariah Sitchin that actually translates these. Look at this. Robert William Rogers, back in 1912, translated tablets, and he's called it, his title was Cuneiform Parallels to the Old Testament. So, again, nothing to do with Sitchin and parallels to the Old Testament. In other words, one of them's older. And we know the older tablets are older than the Bible.
And the texts and things that we've seen, yes. But that doesn't...
This lovely lady is talking about some of the Anunnaki being reptilian. And if you heard there in the clip, she says, based on text. Now, I've been doing this for 40 years. I've never come across any text that say the Anunnaki were reptilian. Obviously, if you look at their statues and carvings, etc., None have scales like a reptilian. They're all, basically like us in their image. So if the person's listening, would you do me a favour? Only because I can't, I'd love to see it. Please don't show me David Icke or anything else like that. Please don't show me another researcher. You've said that it's in texts. I've been sent a link to this gentleman's video, and the person that sent it said, take him out. I'm guessing he means make him look silly. Now, I've done videos on giants before, so I'm not going to go over that. Obviously, if this guy doesn't understand anything about the Smithsonian destroying the skeletons in a legal court case, he'll probably say that's not a genuine document that shows that it was a legal court case and someone's knocked it up for a giggle. But anyway, so the point where I'm sort of just going to educate the person is he's talking here about this giant, and have a listen.
For this argument is there's a lack of proof, but the lack of proof doesn't mean that it's not possible. Let's examine this for a minute, and I'll explain why. They couldn't be Homo sapiens because we have so much variation in Homo sapiens that you just can't say that somebody who's tall is a giant. They're not a different race, they're just tall.
Okay, so the legal definition of someone who's a giant is 7 feet. So straight away, unfortunately, there's basketball players that are well over 7 feet. So you've got to be careful what you say, because obviously someone like me will just come along and point out that is a giant if you're over 7 foot legally. Now, you could argue, well, hang on a minute, what about dwarfs? Are they a different race? No, that's because in your psyche you're thinking of Dungeons and Dragons, when really people can be little people and giant people.
Tall. For example, the shortest person alive today is 61 centimeters tall, while the tallest person alive today is 251 centimeters today. That's a difference of 1.9 meters, essentially. Nobody's out here saying that those two people are different races. So we have a wide variety of heights within our species, is what I'm saying.
So why can't it be a giant then? Do you see what I'm saying? So you've just said that people can be very tall, but this can't be a Homo sapien.
Now, if giants were real, they would have to be a different race. For example, the shortest person alive today is 61 centimeters tall, while the tallest person alive today is 251 centimeters today.
This made me laugh. I thought it might make you laugh. The Smithsonian magazine was saying that all crop circles are fake, and that's because the Smithsonian are fake themselves. And I say that because they're the ones that got done in a court case 1902 about destroying giant skeletons because they didn't want our true history to be known to us. And they're also funded by the Rockefellers, who, once you know who they are and what they're up to, there's no way they want us to know that these crop circles are done by orbs. And there's lots of people now, not just Dr. Levengood, but there's other people now that have been researching the crop circles, the genuine ones. As you see here, the actual node length increases in a genuine crop circle. So it gives a 400% extra yield on the actual crop itself. So watch my previous videos I've done on crop circles and how it's done and why they do it, etc. But I just thought it was funny, the Smithsonian, I hate them. Sorry. Oh, you just have to watch to the end. This person here, you're going to have a laugh. So this person here is trying to debunk Zecharia Sitchin, and he's talking to someone else. And let's have a listen to what he says, and then we'll all have a huge giggle at this person's expense.
So I want to talk about a very famous and very popular author who dabbles in fringe and especially pseudoscience, and that is Zecharia Sitchin. And so my biggest question is, he's famous for all of these translations and theories and all of this other good stuff that I know really very little about. My question...
He knows very little about. Did you hear that? So this numpty here has just said pseudoscience and all the translations, etc. So in other words, Zecharia Sitchin's wrong, and yet this person knows very little about. In other words, how does he know that Zecharia Sitchin's wrong if you know very little about it? Numpty.
The elements and gases forming together to form universes.
This person on the Gaia channel has said that there was no Big Bang, it was just light, gas, matter, etc., all creating the universe. Now, I have a problem with that, because in order for something to create something, you would really need it to be in motion. In other words, you can't have gas one place and gas another and then expect them to collide.
So you would need some sort of force or motion for them to collide in order for you to end up getting the universe, etc. So if everything was just stagnant, nothing would collide, therefore you would get no universe, even though there was matter before the universe, according to this lady. This should make you laugh. This gentleman here, not him, this guy here, is basically having a debate with me, and basically in his video he said that Noah is represented by the sun and so on, which I kind of then said, well, hang on a minute, we have original texts that predate Noah talking about the sun, and no one, in fact the sun god Ra actually predates that. So basically I said that, and then this guy says no life forms can leave home planet, stop watching Ancient Aliens. So this gentleman's basically saying that although meteorites, which I asked him how come, he didn't answer, how come meteorites can come through but we can't leave, or any aliens can't leave their home planet? Of course he ignored that, and then basically he went on, this is the funny part here, he says, laugh out loud, the Anunnaki are not real aliens, they are the sun stories, just like religious books. Now tell me how Enki, right up here, created humans to carry baskets. Now tell me how that is sun stories. Tell me how that is to do with sun. This person doesn't seem to believe in the Anunnaki in terms of aliens. So I've put a post up. Now bearing in mind he is actually from the University of California, which is funded by you-know-who. So you can probably guess where I'm going with this. So I've put a post up. Let's see if it gets deleted. And yes, I use Mark Thomas as an alias. What was the shrine to Nibiru, I've asked, also known as Nibruki? Shrine, a place regarded as holy because its association with a divinity or sacred person or relic marked by a building or other constructions. Then I wrote the brothers Enki and Enlil, etc., called planets deities. Thus, the shrine to Nibru would be the shrine to Nibiru, aka Nibru, which I've read in translations. If it's not a shrine to their planet, then what is the shrine for? Let's see if he deletes my comment. Wow, you ain't gonna believe this. Just this morning, I posted a comment on this guy's YouTube channel, and it's now been deleted. And the reason why it's been deleted is because I asked a question that he couldn't answer. Now, bearing in mind, he seems to think he knows a lot about cuneiform. In fact, so much so, same guy here without the beard, actually, he's done a video saying Zechariah Sitchin debunked with Dr. Manio. However, if you can't, Mr. Manio, answer my simple question, which I did, go watch my previous video, everybody. Brilliant question. Knew he would delete it, and it's only the same day. So someone's gone in and deleted my comment because they can't answer it. Because it proves that the Anunnaki were real. Obviously, this guy doesn't want it to be. Watch my previous video, it explains it all.
In search of gold. On their home planet, gold is turned into a liquid, which is used to create a protective blanket around their planet's atmosphere.
Sadly, this is why, although he's got 1 million followers, he hasn't actually done the research. What he's done is he's took, I don't know where he's even got the liquid part from, but the actual tablets do talk about creating it into dust particles, tiny particles, not liquid. So obviously if you pour liquid in your atmosphere, chances are it's going to come straight down. You sprinkle gold particles in the atmosphere and then they will probably stay there. So that even the logic just doesn't sit right with me that he said liquid. But all I was just trying to say is that there's people out there, bless them, that have great followers, but then those followers then come to me and tell me I'm wrong when I've done 40 years of research, but TikTokers that don't do any research can just say what they want and I get told that I'm wrong. Crazy world. I hate debunking everyone, it's just I feel like nobody actually does any research anymore. So I'm just going to prove that the Encyclopedia Britannica is actually talking about, I'll let you have a guess, but this person believes it's a dome over the earth.
Is to be featureless in character with a dome 13,000 feet high at about latitude 80 degrees. And why does the encyclopedia tell you that there's a dome there, and it gives you the...
So you get the idea. However, unfortunately, if the person actually done any research, which is why people follow me, there's Britannica. A dome is classed as a mountain range, sometimes just a mountain that's geologically come up from the ground, normally with molten rock. So that's what the dome they're referring to, unfortunately. Just follow me, guys. It's a lot easier instead of listening to other people.
I'm not doing this video to knock this gentleman, but basically he's done a video talking about the Anunnaki, and as you may know, I'm quite good on the Anunnaki.
They performed genetic experiments on different Earth animals to try to create a new slave race. Eventually, they were successful.
Yes, the screen needs
Splicing
cleaning.
DNA from the Anunnaki with cavemen called Homo erectus, a new species of...
So he says Homo erectus. Unfortunately, the reason why I'm worried is because he's going to do a whole video on the Anunnaki, and if he's got that basic, simple thing wrong to start with, as you see here, now extinct except for fragments of the DNA shot in some modern Homo sapiens in human samples. That's to do with the Homo erectus. However, if you actually look properly at Neanderthal, you'll find that we are closest to them, and therefore it's more than likely them, and including Princeton University has admitted that black people also have Neanderthal DNA. Atlantis, this person, Matthew Lacroix, forgive me if I pronounce his name wrong, is talking about Atlantis. Listen.
Care about Plato's story right now. Let's put that off the side. I'm so sick of people saying that that's the only reason Atlantis is around or exists because of Plato. That's not true.
Okay, so basically what he's really saying is don't listen to Plato because there's other people, etc., out there, not really many, that ended up telling Plato anyway. So let's have a look and see what he says here.
So what, like, but Plato gives very detailed descriptions of where it is.
So now he's going back to where Plato is. The problem is with that is when you read Plato's story, it's up to 4 hours long. And this was a person telling another person. I'm being paraphrasing here, but basically, I wouldn't remember one minute's worth of the details, not let alone 4 hours. So have a listen to this guy. His name's Matthew Lacroix. Forgive me if I pronounced that wrong. And he's on a channel called The Fifth Kind. Now, I actually thought that The Fifth Kind was supposed to be, really up there with the research, etc. But this guy seems to have a few things wrong. So let's have a listen and look.
And so in Eridu, the tablets state that this Anuna god, this creator god of humanity, and they all agree. Like there's no text that's like, oh, this other supposed being is our creator, and then this one says this. No, they all say the same thing. This being known as Enki, who was later called Ea.
So Akkad, just to help people, Akkadian also called Enki Ea. So although Sitchin says Ea was the first name, in Akkadian they also carried on using the name Ea. So this is why this guy's probably saying that.
To the Akkadian civilizations, and he's got many other names, but it talked about in this how they were non-physical, non-corporeal beings, something that is a truly powerful, sophisticated group of creator gods that goes way beyond our understanding and concepts, in my opinion, of something like an alien or something. This is something.
So, in other words, Enki, who we've got statues of, who created us in their image, who's actually got statues in the various museums around the world, who agree that it's Enki or Ea. There's another one here, and another one here. And guess what? Yeah, there's thousands of them. And when you actually start looking down to, look, here's, I'm not even going to spell that out for you. Enki poured. You see that? I'm not going to read that out. Now, if these are the people that he just said, which were basically formless, they kind of wouldn't have had all these 1,000-odd statues carved in their image, which we look like them if they were just all, you get where I'm going with this. And obviously there's so many more stories of them doing the same sort of thing. Look here, it says, I can't pronounce that, Ninhursigaja cursed the name Enki until his dying day. So clearly they die. So I don't know where he got those texts from. Matthew, if you're watching this, please show me where it says that they were basically not like what we were aware of them as. And obviously you started the thing with Eridu City, so these entities that you're basically saying why would they need a city? So yeah, a bit confused. So let me know, Matthew, what you're talking about.
They would have taken us into the Atlantis ship and risen above.
This lovely lady is called Oracle 38, and as my followers know, I only sort of deal with evidence, and I have done a video on Atlantis and actually have shown evidence, more evidence than anyone else has ever shown, but it's not a spaceship according to my evidence. So if anyone's got any evidence of what the Oracle 38 is saying, that it was a spaceship, just one little bit of evidence, please show it to me. If there's no evidence, then feel free to follow me. For the people that keep saying it's a fake, shut up. And the reason why I say shut up is because when you look here at this one from 2017 that was spoken about in the Express newspaper, British paper, read this bit. However, it has already been slammed as a hoax by more sceptical researchers, right? So let's read what their evidence is. Okay, so here, this is by Nigel Watson. It looks like a plaster cast model to me. I'd call it 100%, 110% fake. This is the evidence they've got. Mark West, an administrator of metabunk.org, says they, spelt wrong now, should be they do a CT scan of the mummy, which, if genuine, does suggest it actually has bones. Things that strike me as particular fake looking are the face. Looks like it's been sculpted from clay. This is evidence, guys. This is what you lot say. It's been debunked when they're just giving their opinions. Stop. The aliens have been debunked by numpties. Oh, numpties? Why did I say numpties? Let's have a look. Reuters, reputable, very reputable. Okay, so let's have a look here. Around the world this week, when they were presented to Mexico's Congress, are an already debunked, perhaps criminal stunt. Already debunked, yeah? So we go down, we read some more, we read some more, we read some more. And do you know where it says anything about them being debunked? Nowhere. Nowhere whatsoever in this. And I'll put the link in the text, in the posts. So basically what you've got here is Reuters wanting everyone to believe they're debunked, and then I get stupid people saying to me, they've been debunked. Show me where it says what it is that they've been debunked here. They haven't been debunked. So this is, talk about criminal. This Reuters need to be able to slap. So stop believing mainstream. I am genuinely lost for words here. This person here, Megan Lewis, who apparently has an Eastern PhD student, is on a podcast or on a video called Problems with Zecharia Sitchin and the Ancient Alien Theory. Okay, so I'm going to play a bit of this. Now, this isn't me saying what she says, this is her.
With that kind of material. And one overarching problem that you do have to keep in mind is that a lot of the time these theories are rooted either consciously or otherwise. They're rooted in a kind of white supremacy, racist mindset.
So what she's actually saying is people like myself who have evidence for the ancient astronaut theory, it's not even a theory, it's evidence now. Well, you just heard what she said. It gets worse.
General sense is that white people didn't make these structures. If you think specifically about things like the pyramids, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia and of Mesoamerica, white people didn't do them. White people weren't doing these kinds of amazing things at a comparable time period. Therefore, indigenous people, brown people, black people could not have done these at the time that archaeology says they did.
So she's saying that people, again, like myself and other researchers, are saying because white people didn't do it, black people certainly couldn't do it. That's according to her. Wait for it.
So it must have been aliens. Okay. Completely ignoring the fact that, especially if you look at Egypt, we have records of how, like specifically instructions of how they made the pyramids. We have like super clear records of that kind of thing. We know.
Okay. That is the key. That's how... I can't use bad words because TikTok will... We have super clear records of how they built the pyramids. There is no records of how they built the pyramids. This is why I'm lost for words. So you've got someone coming on here trying to debunk everyone else. And the most basic of information is that no one knows how they built the pyramids. No one. There is nothing whatsoever to say how they built the pyramids. And she just said there's clear instructions. And so this is what we're up against. This is why people should follow me and nothing like people that have PhDs. This is why I know more than her and she's got a PhD. You guys know more than her. So please, just enough. Follow me. It's a lot easier. I don't have to keep debunking people then. You guys have asked me to ask this lady who says that we actually have evidence of how they built the pyramids.
Completely ignoring the fact that, especially if you look at Egypt, we have records of how, like specifically instructions of how they made the pyramids. We have like super clear records of that kind of thing.
Yeah, one of the ancient wonders of the world that we don't have evidence of. So anyway, this is her website with her husband. Here it says, Megan Lewis is a trained Assyriologist, meaning that she knows more about ancient Mesopotamia than anyone but one true person truly should. Our aim is to provide reliable, accurate information. So I've sent her, just about to send a message to her saying, where the hell is this information saying how pyramids were built? Because literally no one knows except for her. So I'm just about to send it now. Sent. So there we go. Let's see if we can get the answers to something. This text is regarding a video that I'd done about the lady in the background who said that we know how to build the pyramids because we was left explicit instructions on how to build the pyramids. However, she doesn't obviously know what she was talking about, but this lady has come to the rescue and said go to Live Science and look at the ancient logbook. Now, I have actually done a video on the ancient logbook way back and explained exactly what it was, but let's look at what Live Science says. Basically, Live Science is, which, trust me, I don't like Live Science. If you want misinformation, there you go. But basically, it goes on to say that the blocks that were being moved down the Nile in the actual papyrus are for the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, the Khufu's. However, there was no mention whatsoever in the papyrus of the word pyramid. So all it was a logbook way later after the pyramids were built, saying that they was just moving blocks. That's all it was. So I'm just doing another video on this woman. Don't worry, it's not the same clips as before, but listen to this.
Which is very tricky, and it means that when academics are approached with alien theories, they can obviously debunk most of it, but then, at least when I do it, there are a couple of things I'm like, look, I know this isn't right. I can't right now present you with evidence for why it's not right. Give me some time, I'll go away, find something. Mm-hmm. But then the response is, oh, well, you can't prove me wrong right here, right now, therefore I'm right.
So basically, she's starting from the position of that the person that she's talking about, even though she says something's not quite right, she's starting from the position of, I'm going to debunk anyone regardless of whether it's correct or not. Whereas when I do my research, I look at the research and whatever the answers are is what the answers are. But she's just literally admitted that she's happy to deliberately try and debunk instead of actually looking at the evidence. I would love to see any evidence that the Egyptians built the pyramids, any evidence whatsoever, including these hieroglyphics that you are mentioning, which I've never seen and no one else has. Once you realise you can't find them, feel free to say sorry and follow me. Aliens created humans. This is probably the best evidence you'll ever get. So this guy is called Irvin Finkel. He's the head curator of the British Museum. He reads the ancient tablets. He's asked in this interview whether or not he believes the Anunnaki aliens that's in the tablets that he reads, that he gets paid to read, are actually not only real but real aliens. So let's see what he says.
Okay, and then one was, who are the Anunnaki and why are they not ancient aliens?
The Anunnaki are a group of 600 gods. They're gods. And they're well known. They exist in texts. They often get mentioned. There are two groups, the Anunnaki and the Igigi, and they move above and below.
He's really struggling here. Now he's going above and below, in other words, up into space and back. He's struggling, and I'll tell you why he's struggling in a second.
And they have various roles to play, but they are among the other deities of ancient Mesopotamia. How anybody tied that in with aliens?
So hang on a minute. He's just admit they go up and down. I'll just play that bit again for you. This is the most... So he doesn't deny their myths. He doesn't say they're myths. Doesn't deny anything like that. So let's just listen to this again. It's really important how he struggles. Because I'll tell you why in a second, because he's not allowed.
They often get mentioned. There are two groups, the Anunnaki and the Igigi, and they move above and below, and they have various roles to play, but they are...
above and below. So they're not myths. You tell me anyone that can go above.
Among the other deities of ancient Mesopotamia. How anybody tied that in with aliens?
You just admitted that they go up. You just admitted they go up into space. I know you didn't use the words heaven or space, but we've got the actual tablets that you translated that basically say they go up and down, and you still not said they're myths.
I have no idea. But I should think anything that has the word Anunnaki in should be handled with a very long pair of tweezers until you get clearance from somebody who knows about cuneiform, who can tell within 2 minutes whether it's about something worth reading or whether it's absolute twaddle.
Okay, so this is him now mentioning that he's got a tablet that Enki tells Noah. So if he's not fictitious, if this is all real, then this tablet is also real.
Tablet to read this tablet when it turned out the following thing, because the god Enki, who had discovered that the world was going to be destroyed, decided it wasn't a good matter and that he picked on some human being to build.
So we've actually got all the text that he's referring to there. So he's now not saying they're myths. Now, if you look where he works at the British Museum. Now, all of these, this is just me typing in the word Enlil, and there's 441 results for Enlil. Enlil being the main god, the god of Israel, if you all know your history. So as you can see here, this is what he gets paid to look after and read, etc. Enlil. Now, there's a hell of a lot of stuff here, including images as well as carving statues, etc. of Enlil, and a temple, by the way. And, you know, obviously there's thousands of texts as well that's not shown here. So he's real, and he still didn't say they were myths. So let's just look who funds the British Museum, because that's how it goes by. It's the Rockefeller Foundation. Pretty much supports the British Museum. So if this guy said that they were aliens, he would be out of a job. And the reason for that is because the Rockefellers, if you watch any of my videos, you realise how strong they are at debunking aliens, giants, anything like that. So much so that apparently there was a court case to do with the Smithsonian's, which is pretty much run by the Rockefellers, back in 1902. Now, I know some people say it's not true, but obviously the people that say it's not true are the Smithsonian. Come on. So I think his answer's there. He knows exactly what he's saying, but if he said it, the whole world would be in uproar, because he's literally saying that forget God, the Anunnaki were here. And obviously I've done that amazing video. If you want to know, watch my previous videos to find the one that shows the evidence that the Anunnaki were aliens. It's on my website, outtruehistory.co.uk. Scroll down, let me just type that in now just to show you, because I know there's people out there that say I want to see evidence. So outtruehistory.co.uk, go down to where it says here is a link on the homepage, just with the 34 minutes. Now there's a lot more than that, there's hours worth of evidence, but 34 minutes you can watch here. The rest is on my Patreon page. But 34 will show you that the God in the Bible were the Anunnaki. So I think with his evidence there, and I know you're going to say, no, it's not evidence. When someone stutters and literally admits that they were real by saying they go up and down, and then says, how does anyone think that they're aliens? He's just said they go up and down. I can't go up and down. I rest my case. Amazing new chambers found inside a pyramid. These are hidden, and apparently, according to this expert Egyptologist, they're probably burial objects inside for the royal rulers. However, misinformation. Do not trust any Egyptologist or any archaeologist anymore, because no pyramid has ever had any of these burial objects inside, because they were not tombs. So just to prove my point of how misinformation is, I wrote on ChatGPT, list any burial items found in a pyramid. Now, we know ChatGPT is very mainstream. So it said all of these things. I know none of these have got inside pyramids. So then I wrote, you said offerings and treasures, name one pyramid. And then it said Tutankhamun's. And then I wrote, Tutankhamun was not in a pyramid. Why are you basically lying? And it said, you're right. So follow me, because I won't lie to you. Not like these.
When was Noah born? Whoa! Noah was born 69.
So this person's saying that Enoch never met Noah because Noah wasn't born until after Enoch had passed. And my question to this person is, are you referring to Noah as in the name Noah, or are you actually referring to the person? Because he was also known as Atrahasis, he was also known as Upanishtam and Zazudra. So are you just looking where the words Noah comes into it? Because if you look at the Epic of Gilgamesh, Upanishtam, who was Noah, lived a lot longer but had a different name. So I'm just asking this person, which reference is he going by? What does Dr. Stephen Greer say about aliens building the pyramids?
Well, honestly, I don't necessarily think that there were ETs that made them.
Right, now hang on, hold on, listen to this.
The man I referred to earlier from Redstone Arsenal area, who is given material occasionally, is not always extraterrestrial. He has been given objects that are tens of thousands of years old or older, that are technological, that have been found in the ocean and elsewhere, that were of human origin.
Okay, so he says human origin. So unless it actually says made by a human, how does he know? I love Stephen Greer to pieces, but he should stay out of the ancient alien theories and stick with the modern ones. How does he know? How would you know? If you found ancient technology, how would you know it's human-made, not alien? Which ancient alien researchers can you trust? This is David Childress. Have a listen and then I'll explain why he's wrong. So there's only seems to be me left that gets everything right.
In Sumerian, you have these very curious stories of the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki were half god, half man, who came down from the stars. They were instructing the Sumerians in various arts of civilization. They were very strange looking. They had elongated heads. They looked almost like insect type people, or what they call reptilian features in a sense, or a viper visage, as the Watchers were called in the Bible.
Okay, so he's gone by this one statue. There's two of these that's out there that seems to have some sort of squashed face, etc. And when you actually look at the Sumerian gods, they look like us because we're in their image. Now, that does not look like that. That is what David Icke had said was the Anunnaki, a reptilian. However, there's only two of these, and yet there are thousands of these with them looking like us humans. Thousands, except the fact that they were 8 to 12 foot tall. But yeah, so I don't know why there's no evidence whatsoever that these are reptilian. The Anunnaki were reptilian. None whatsoever, other than this unfortunate carving that seems to have been, squished or whatever happened to it. Zachariah Sitchin said that this was actually supposed to be a female and the clay got squashed when they was making it. And this was a hairdo. He says it was Ishtar. But look, I mean, ancient aliens, otherworldly magic, yes. So I don't know, maybe just follow me. It's probably easier than listening to everyone else. I mean, you take your pick. Two of these, or thousands of these with no description whatsoever of them being reptilian or even having elongated skulls. Yes, there's elongated skulls. Watch my other videos.
My name is Kaylee, and it's been about a year since a certain show on Netflix aired.
So basically she's talking about Graham Hancock's Archaeology show, and this site here is called History with Kaylee, The Dangers of Pseudo-Archaeology, and I'm going to educate her.
And I thought I would make a video in which I'm going to explain the difference between archaeology and pseudo-archaeology.
And I'm going to explain the difference between numpties and liars.
And what the dangers of pseudo-archaeology are to our history.
And I'm going to explain the dangers of lying to us. Ignore her subscription. I certainly won't be subscribing because I don't trust mainstream, as you'll see in a few seconds when I educate you guys. Sorry if it's a bit longer.
So to explain
anyway,
in the very simplest of ways, pseudo-archaeology is fake archaeology. Pseudo comes from the Greek word pseuds, which means false or lying.
Yes, please tell me.
The prefix pseudo is used to mark something that superficially appears to be or behaves like one thing, but actually is something else. For example, pseudo-archaeologists like to pretend they're part of the history community, like they're archaeologists researching ancient times, but their work is mostly based off of grand claims, unsubstantiated by data, exaggeration of evidence, dramatic or romanticized conclusions, use of fallacious arguments, and at times, even the fabrication of evidence.
Okay, so this is someone that believes that people like myself are making it up. So let's have a look here. This is mainstream. Mainstream said that pre-Clovis sites in America weren't possible. Traditionally before 13,000 years. However, as you see there with the different dates, this is now accepted. So what was originally pseudoscience has now become mainstream because technology moves on, knowledge moves on. So we've got one here that's just made her look snumpty, maybe? Okay, Göbekli Tepe was another one where they said no way humans could be building stuff around the time that Göbekli Tepe was supposedly built, which would have been approximately 12,000 years BC. Now, they said that can't be done because there's no way it's going to be done, and you're pseudoscience. So, turns out, mainstream now agreed that Göbekli Tepe is as old as they say. So, another tick for pseudoscience. Okay, Earth's inner core has always been a solid ball. You must know that if you went to school. However, people have been saying that they believe that it's possibly an ice core or liquid. And of course, that's pseudoscience because there's no real evidence, as she's just said. However, now, actually, this is in Popular Mechanics, which is an important site. Actually, Earth's solid core isn't all that solid. So my point is, dear lady, just because right now someone's idea doesn't have all the facts, it shouldn't be classed as, and you, let's be honest, you are trying to knock it. You're trying to say that Graham Hancock's suggestions, etc., are fake. And we've just proved, I could go on and on and on. We've just proved that 3 mainstream pseudosciences are now become true. In which case, which one's pseudoscience? Is it now the pseudoscience, but yet before it wasn't, or now? You get my point. So anyway, this is why I don't trust people like her.
You want to know how come our moon doesn't have a name, yet all the other moons in the solar system do?
I've been watching him actually recently, and he's not as smart as I thought he was. Not that I've seen much of him before, but anyway, the few things that I've seen him now recently in, he keeps making mistakes. Anyway, so yes, we do have a name, even though he goes on to talk about lunar, etc. The actual original name, the people that gave all the names to all the planets were the Anunnaki. We know that because we've got the oldest text, which predates the word lunar. And we've got 2 names for the moon. One is Kingu, and the other is Lahimu, which is Sumerian / Anunnaki language. So although he says Luna is the official one, if you want to go back and find out where, for example, Earth came from, it was Kai. Guess who gave us Kai? Anunnaki. So I don't know why he's coming out with that. If you want to go back to the original, which is, you should always go back to the original, and you can't go far wrong. Neil deGrasse Tyson says,
region of Peru. By the way, just a few days ago, I received an official invitation to Mexico to look at these 2 alien bodies personally. An official invitation. And I declined for a very simple reason. But I'd love to see the aliens. But if you're going to make an official invitation to a scientist, that invitation should not go to an astrophysicist.
So he spends the next 10 minutes saying that the people that have the bodies should be contacting biologists, etc. Not once did he, and I thought he was supposed to be smart, not once did he say, I asked whether there was other people coming at this invitation. Do you really think the people that had the Mexican bodies decided just to call you up and invite you for one day? No, they probably invited loads of people. Yes, it's David Minio again, Professor. However, if he was in a class with me, I would be teaching him, and I'll show you why I'll be teaching him. Watch this.
Get upset when their claims about ancient history are called pseudoarchaeology. Yeah, it starts with a P. What exactly is pseudoarchaeology? Well, the literal meaning is fake archaeology. That is something that is not archaeology, which is masquerading as archaeology.
So this is the guy that, if you remember, pretended that he debunked Zecharia Sitchin on a video. However, if you watch my videos, you see that I actually totally and utterly destroyed this man. In fact, I even emailed him, and he never replied. But anyway, yeah, so basically, do not trust what this guy says, because I have proved him wrong when it comes to Zecharia Sitchin. Now, I'm going to prove him wrong on pseudo-archaeology. So basically what he's doing here is he's knocking anyone that sort of throws out the ancient alien theory. Of course, I've proved it on my videos. If you go and watch them, you'll see that I have. Tens of thousands of people watched it. Not one person has given me evidence to say I'm wrong. So these are pseudo-archaeology and pseudoscience categories that are now mainstream. These were called pseudoscience. So when someone, I'll start with the word N and end with numpty. Oh, sorry. When someone pretends to know absolutely everything, which is what he's doing, he's saying that no matter what happens, as long as mainstream's got it right, therefore anyone else is pseudoscience. However, these subjects here are now mainstream. So what, it defies belief, doesn't it? So what we know now, in a year, in 2 years, in 10 years, will possibly become mainstream, in which case people like him are once again proven wrong, that there is such a thing as pseudoscience that turns into mainstream science. So just bear that in mind, guys, if you ever see this guy on his YouTube channel. It's called World of Antiquity. I would personally follow me because I don't lie. There's no point. I'll tell you as it is.
From the land of Tem. And the Emerald Tab, it starts on Atlantis, the actual island itself. Thoth's dad sends him to the land of Tem. He calls himself an Atlantean. Atlantis was the whole planet. Earth was Atlantis. Everyone is...
So he's gone from an island...
The actual island itself.
Now, to be honest with you, there's really only two ancient places that talk about Atlantis. One is the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which the actual record that we have would have been about the 1200s from a translation of possibly older texts, and the other was Plato, who wrote stories. That's what his job was. He wrote many, many different books. And obviously, if you go by Plato's, then it's an island. But of course, now he's saying it's the whole planet. So I would like to see the evidence of this whole planet being Atlantis, because you've probably only got the information from Plato, who, as you watch my videos, you'll see that Plato made up a lot of the stuff.
It could have been some type of a craft, or at least a DNA bank.
Billy is talking about Noah's Ark and saying that it could be a spaceship or it could have been a boat similar to this. Now, that's like me saying there was a Jesus, or there may not have been a Jesus. It's a bit of a flip-flop answer when we've actually got this guy here who has actually in his possession the actual original tablet from Sumerian times. And the tablet talks about how the boat was built. And there's also other translations of different texts, which is basically saying the same thing, that the boat has got to be made out of wood and the bitumen's got to be strong. And it tells you how to build the boat, basically. So why Billy was talking about possibly a spaceship when we've literally got the texts that tell us, and there's no evidence that it's a spaceship. So we might as well go where the evidence is, which is a boat.
Enoch is actually Thoth, but in the Sumerian tablets, Nin-Gazeta.
Where do all these people come from that don't actually do any research? Enoch was not a god. Ningazida was. Ningazida / Thoth built the pyramids, whereas Enoch was taken around by messengers of gods. If you actually did bother doing any research, I don't know, I just give up.
Sirius star system. Some came from the Pleiades, some came from Aldebaran, some came from...
This clip is from a video that Billy Carson's done saying that in the British Museum there is the Enuma Elish, which talks about the planet Nibiru and the Anunnaki. And then he proceeds to say that the Anunnaki seem to have come from all those different locations that you saw in the beginning of the clip. Now, I haven't come across any evidence of that whatsoever. So I'm just wondering if anyone's got any evidence of it, or whether it's just sort of something that Billy's thought might be the case, as opposed to actual evidence. So if anyone's got any evidence that the Anunnaki said whatsoever that they come from anywhere else other than Nibiru, please let me know. Thank you. I was just watching this live with this gentleman, and he said that Jesus will judge you when you die, and then you kind of do your own judgment. So I wrote this most obvious question. What about the 298,000 years of people that died before Jesus was born? Do they get judgment? Obviously, those poor souls, 298,000 years, we're talking a few billion people. Obviously, he just didn't read my question out. And that's really sad, because when I do my lives, I read every single question out, even if it's a hate one. So straight away, my spider senses on him avoid, from my point of view, because I will never not read anyone's question out. Regardless, I will answer it. And if I don't know the answer, I'll say I don't know the answer. I don't avoid questions. So that's my first problem. And the second problem is, seriously, what about the 288,000 years of people that had no Jesus to judge them? Where are they? This lady talks about the Anunnaki, and I kind of have an idea of which researcher she sort of takes the information from, because it's actually not right. So let's have a listen to what she says here, and we'll go through where the problems are.
They tweaked our DNA so that we would not use full potential of our brain.
So basically she's saying here that the Anunnaki tweaked human or Homo sapien DNA. Unfortunately, there was no Homo sapien. That's where the missing link comes in. So basically we've got evidence that, including dark-skinned people, we have Neanderthal DNA in us, which means it was the Anunnaki's essence and Neanderthal DNA that created the Homo sapien. So she then says basically that they fused the chromosomes to make us less smart. Have a listen.
Why? Because if not, we'd be like Dr. Strange, masters of quantum physics.
So she's saying that because they genetically modified chromosomes to make us less smart. However, this is the actual text that she's probably not even bothered reading. So this is the actual text from the translations of the ancient tablets. This is Enki talking to his mother. My mother, the creature you planned, creature that's us Homo sapiens, that will be once they've done it, you planned will really come into existence. Impose on him the work of carrying the baskets. That's because they needed us to carry baskets for, yes, you guessed it, the gold that they were mining. Now, why make someone dumb to carry baskets when you already had someone dumb in the first place? So you didn't need to do anything. So in other words, if the Homo sapien, obviously there was no Homo sapien, but let's pretend this woman's right, the creature was smart enough already, they had to dumb it down to get this new creature to be able to carry a basket, when obviously the modern, the one that's already there would have. So you see my point. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of this woman's videos, and yeah.
There was a war that went on. Disagreements happened. The golden age began to fall, and these beings, these advanced beings, started going to war against each other for control and domination of humans and resources on this planet and other planets as well in our solar system. One of them being the moon and Mars. And they actually had a battle. So this battle is also well recorded in Sumerian tablets tales.
Okay, I would love to see these tablets that talk about the war on Mars and the moon. I've not seen them.
It's time for the Nephilim to return. The time has come. They will invade your...
The lady was just saying the giant Nephilim will return, but here in the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, it's basically saying that the Anunnaki tried to wipe them out. And when I say Anunnaki, we actually have proof. Here's ancient texts here talking about, this is just one of many, that predate the Bible, literally saying that they're going to create a flood, and then a bit later on they're going to tell Zazudra, which was Noah, to build an ark, blah blah blah. So we've got Nephilim returning according to that lady, but that means Jesus coming back isn't such a miracle then, if the Nephilim return back from dying after being in a flood. But that's okay, because Superman and Batman obviously returns as well. But we do actually have all the evidence we need in this video here. So if anyone's interested in it, go to YouTube and type in "proof Anunnaki were here," and that will answer everything you ever need to know.
And after many years, two old guys in their 80s revealed that they were the ones.
What a load of rubbish. So here is a carving in wood that was then talked about in a paper back in 1678. So unless Doug and Dave had time travel machines, they didn't do all of the crop circles. Now, if you actually look at Dr. Levengood's research, he shows with evidence that the crop nodes are superheated. In other words, the knuckle part of a crop is superheated from the inside with a microwave. Doesn't mean someone goes out with a microwave. It means whatever the phenomenon is, superheats it and it bends the node, as opposed to a plank of wood which flattens from the bottom. But of course, let's not have evidence ruin a good fake story like that person was saying at the beginning. And of course, there was crop circles all over the world as well prior to Doug and Dave. And some simultaneous at the same time. So well done, Doug and Dave. You're geniuses in time travel.
Multiple alien races out there. We should be literally tripping over each.
This video is talking about the Fermi paradox, which basically says that there should be millions of aliens and we should be all tripping over each other by now. That's the assumption from these people that's on this video. The problem with that is we do have aliens. We've been seeing aliens for a very long time. Millions of people have actually been abducted and got scoop marks and implants and missing time and regression and everything else. So we do actually have the aliens. Now, what if they don't want to be seen? Just because we might be tripping over ourselves, if they avoid being seen, then what? Then what do we do? So this is why people like this really annoy me, because they just see it from one logical point of view, but they don't actually really see it properly. So obviously, if they don't want to be seen, then they won't be seen. So it doesn't mean they're not there.
According to the Bible, the Earth is only around 6,000 years old.
This gentleman asks another gentleman if that's true, and the guy goes, yes, it's more than likely true, because then he starts quoting things from the Bible. Problem with that is we've got things like the King's List, which show thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of years of kings reigning. We've also got the Lucifer tree that's over 5,000 years old, and apparently there's one over 6,000 years old in Indonesia. Then we've got the Sumerian tablets that talk about Shahs at 3,600, and there's lots of them, which goes over the 6,000 years. Then we've got the weathering on the Sphinx and the Great Pyramids, which show at least 10,000 BC, 12,000 BCE. And then we got the fact that the Bible actually copied the older texts anyway and got things wrong. I've proved that a zillion times.
Magnetic field. The plane of inertia is where we get the word planet Earth from.
If that's the case, then the Anunnaki who named the planet Keokai would have also wrote down about the inertia, etc., for you to be able to work out that that's how we got the name planet Earth. So could you show me the Sumerian tablets where it says about the inertia, etc., creating the name planet Earth? Because all I know is that the Anunnaki came down and they'd already named all the planets in our solar system, and that's written in ancient texts. So if you could just give me the evidence for what you said, that'd be great. Thank you.
To mine all of the resources that they needed from planet Earth. Not to mention, the reptilians were not very happy.
This person is saying that the reptilians owned planet Earth and that the Anunnaki came here to mine for gold. Part of that's right, obviously the reptilians isn't. So I'm asking the person that's done the video, please stop making up stuff. You've not done the research. You're just copying other people that's got it badly wrong. I'm asking for evidence that the Anunnaki knew reptilians, as you just said, and I'm asking for evidence that the reptilians were upset with the Anunnaki, as you just said. When you realise you can't give me those bits of evidence, because there is none, please just stop putting videos.
Did you know that all blue-white people are related?
And it's because we're all descended from one person.
This person goes on to say that in the past one person had a mutation and therefore everyone with blue eyes comes from them, from the Black Sea area, which just so happens to be where the Anunnaki were, who were pale-skinned, blue eyes and blonde hair, which is what God looks like if you want to describe them, because obviously that's their race name. The Anunnakis were gods. We're humans. So the blue eyes come from Mesopotamia, which was near the Black Sea. And the Anunnaki bred with the Homo sapiens that they'd already created 200,000 years before. And then they actually physically bred with them 200,000 years after they'd created them. And that gave us the pale skin in the Middle East with the blue eyes. So I don't know why people just make up crap instead of actually looking at the evidence, which we've got, by the way.
Be put into a system where you are essentially...
This is Alex Collier. A few people have asked me my thoughts on him, and I've said before, some he gets right, some things he gets wrong. On this occasion, he's got something slightly wrong, so he's referring to the reincarnation cycle of a human, and he says that you go back round and reincarnate. You don't. You don't have a soul. It's an entity that joins with you. And the reason why he's slightly wrong is because if you had a soul and you went round and reincarnated into someone else, that means that person doesn't have a soul, or that person now has two souls. And then when they die, 3 souls into the next person, before you know it, millions of souls. So if you watch his video, he's correct about the soul group and everything else. But like I said, some things he gets right, some things he gets wrong. So we don't have a soul. It's an entity that joins with us. This is Ismail Perez, apparently. And I've been told that, by just 2 people, in fact, that his research is correct and mine's wrong. So I thought I'd have a look at his videos. And of course, I didn't get very far without finding errors. So I thought, instead of doing a long one, which I will do, his video's 1 hour and 20, so I'll probably end up debunking pretty much everything that he says. But let's just go through some of the things now.
You know, everybody in our community, when it comes to the subject matter of the Anunnaki, everybody in our community is gearing towards Enki is the good guy and Enlil is the bad guy.
So basically, that's correct, because here is the translations of the tablets where Enki created the very first Homo sapien, and there was about 6 that ended up with deformities before they managed to get the correct one, and including a woman, by the way. So, yeah. Anyway, so basically here it shows that no matter how bad the description looked, weak hands, a man with broken, paralysed feet, he gave him bread. Basically, he could have just let them die. So when you start reading out what he did for these people, he even gave them jobs as well in the palaces. The one of them are the ones that could still work, available to work. So basically, yeah, compared to the other Anunnakis, which I'll go through in a sec, Enki was actually quite nice, and certainly compared to Enlil. Now, let's have a listen to what he carries on saying.
It's like 90% of our community, all right? Those are the people that are just buying the narrative without...
Yes, because it's, if you actually read more than what you're just about to quote, he's going to quote one reference here, or one book.
Fully questioning the fact that perhaps these ancient records could have been messed with by the Luciferian forces, right, that took over the affairs of our world. So
basically what he's saying is these tablets here, now I don't know about you, I can't control Alt and Delete on these tablets. So he's saying that they could have been changed in the mud. 2 million of these particular clay tablets that we keep digging up now have been changed, reburied. Yeah, you get my point. So this guy's not as good as the other people seem to have said he was. Sorry to the guy if you're actually watching this. It's not my fault. This is what I do. I'm yeah, sorry.
I would like to start off by reading a summary of one of the tablets called the Atrahasis.
So basically he uses that one there and then says that we all go by that one tablet.
The Epic of the Atrahasis. Okay, so this is according to what everybody in our community is basing their so-called facts regarding the Anunnaki.
No, it's not. Well, not me anyway, because as I just pointed out here, I use different translations. from various different sources. If you watched any of my videos, you'd know that. So, for example, here is some translations called the Flood Story, which we'll know what that is. This is the one of the tablets they've got. This is translations in the Oxford University website. Side wall standing at my side. Side wall, I will speak the words to you. Basically, he's telling Enki, the nice one, is telling Noah, or Zazudra as he was called back then, to build an ark. So we've actually got the other version of that with the Ivan Finkel. I'm just trying to find it now. Oh, there he is. So here, Ivan Finkel's got the actual another tablet. So I don't go by, even though the Archaeology talks about it, we've now got the Archaeology, this tablet that this gentleman's got in the British Museum, and the other one that I've just translated, plus obviously the Epic of Gilgamesh, etc. And if you look down there, Enki is the one he's referring to that tells Noah. So it's basically that same story. So Enki's pretty good, in my opinion, that he's actually telling us, saving us, really, to be honest with you. And here in the Archaeology, basically they're telling that they have to create a flood, and Enki says they're basically forcing Enki, let us make far-sighted Enki swear, because Enki wanted to save us. So far it's looking pretty good. Now I must just say, the reason, Ishmael Perez, that I'm doing this video is because this gentleman here kept having a go at me, even though he had no evidence. So I'm not sure where you give your evidence from, but I kept asking him for evidence for the things he was saying, and he had none whatsoever, including, which we'll go through in a sec, some of the other bits you say. So there's another bit here where Enki saves Inanna, where no one else bothered, and Enlil didn't bother. So there's another bit there, just showing you that Enki does have a heart. So let's have a look what you've got to say for yourself on this section.
From their union, the younger gods were born, and they became a noisy and unruly bunch. Apsu,
he's having to read. I mean, clearly, you guys know what I'm like. I can do a 5-hour live chat without him to read anything. But anyway.
Stirred by the noise, plotted to eliminate the younger gods. However, one of the gods, Ea, which of course later to other translations, according to other translations, right, for those that understand the Greek mythology, according to the
So just to let him know, just in case he's interested, Ea was actually the original name for Enki, because En is Lord and Ki is Earth. So he got given that name. So there's no way he would have had that name before he even came to Earth. So Ea was his actual name. Now, if you go back and look at many of the tablets, you'll see that is the case. So that's another one that is...
Bred by post sought a champion Marduk, the god of Babylon, stepped forward and offered to face Tiamat.
So here he's reading the... sounds like he's now reading a bit from the Enum Relish. But anyway, so here it's basically Marduk is telling the story that he destroyed a planet. Now, I don't know if this Ishmael knows it's a planet that we're referring to here with Tiamat. But anyway, let's have a carry on listening.
In exchange for being declared the supreme god. Hence the supreme god.
So basically, Marduk destroys Tiamat and becomes the supreme god.
Think about it. There was some sort of a consolidation from polytheism into monotheism.
So just a little advert time here, because I am the guy that worked out who Yahweh really was. It's on my Patreon page. This video here is documentary, 20 minutes long. And you'll work out as you watch this with the evidence, I will show evidence, that what he's saying there, you don't have to guess, because I give you the evidence for it. He obviously doesn't have that evidence. I guess I'm the only person that's ever worked that out, so it's not his fault. So let's have a look at what he says here.
Threat posed by Tiamat sought a champion, Marduk, right? This is according to these tablets, guys, to prove that Marduk, hence Belial Baal, right? Belial Baal, who is what? He's one of the fallen entities. He's one.
So Bel Marduk is another name for Marduk, but he obviously doesn't know that. But I cover that in my Patreon video on who Yahweh was.
One of these, draconian reptilians that have been running the show.
So he said that Marduk is a draconian reptilian. So let's have a look at what Marduk looks like. Yes, look at that forked tongue. Wow, look at all those scowls on him. Let's have a look at another. This is just obviously a cylinder seal. It's only a few inches high. And here's another carving of Marduk. Obviously this is in stone, so it's difficult to see, but you can get the idea that it's not too dissimilar from his father, who looks like this. Now, there is no scales on these Anunnakis whatsoever. Now, if you actually look at what the Anunnaki carvings are like, they're immaculate and brilliant, but they don't have scales, or they don't have any lizard features whatsoever. So I have done many a video asking people to show me evidence that there were lizards or reptilians or anything like that. Of course, no one ever comes back. So Ishmael, if you are listening, please, please, and don't show me those 2 squashed figurines, for crying out loud. Don't do that. That would be embarrassing. So obviously we've got thousands of these type of carvings for all the Anunnakis, but there is 2 squashed. I didn't bother showing those, but there's 2 squashed ones that David Icke said were reptilian, and therefore the whole of the Anunnaki were reptilian. Bearing in mind we are the offspring off of Anunnaki. I've already showed you that a second ago. In their image. So as far as I'm aware, I'm not a reptilian either. So if you can show me anything other than the 2 squashed carvings, now bearing in mind we do have thousands of these that show what they actually really look like. So I don't know. It's blame this guy. Don't blame me. Blame the TikTok guy. Because I normally try, and I always say, are you sure you want me to watch this guy's videos? I said this to him because I will find things wrong. It's not your fault, Ishmael, it's his. I said, I will find things wrong. I can't help it. I will do a video. I've done it to Billy. I've done it to other researchers. It's not what I want to do. So people don't tell me to watch someone else's video, because I will find errors and I'll point them out. So anyway, sorry. It's not. This is a follow-up to the Ishmael Perez video where this, I won't say numpty. Oh, damn, I just did. Rocco was basically saying that Ishmael Perez knows more than me. I'm stupid, blah, blah, blah. And of course, then I went through and done a 10-minute video where pretty much everything that Ishmael says I prove wrong. So anyway, finally, Rocco's now finally watched that video where I prove Ishmael wrong, and he wrote, wonder why you cut it so quickly. Well, it was 10 minutes, and once he said what he needed to say, I stopped it and then said my piece. So I don't know where you're going with that. And then you wrote, and yes, you are using tablet what tampered. I'm guessing what was tampered with by Thoth. So this person, I keep asking for evidence for things. So show me the evidence that Thoth tampered with the many tablets for the whole 10 minutes video that I done. When you realise you can't, which this person's just causing me problems. Numpty.
Word God in the Bible, for example, is mistranslated. There should be an S on the end of every word that says.
I have a problem with that. Although I do agree that there were gods and the word Elohim is plural, there were times that the Bible was actually writing about a single god. So you can't add the S on every single time that one god is talking about other gods and says that, you know, you should follow me or whatever because I'm a god and don't trust the other gods. You can't have don't follow gods, me, because of the other gods, plural. So you can't do that. So, for example, Yahweh, who was not Enlil, I've done some amazing research on that and proved that with evidence. If you want to see it, let me know. Yahweh at times would be referring to himself as God, so you can't have him saying gods when he's really just referring to himself. Now, he was one of the Anunnaki, but wasn't Enlil. So, although Billy's correct in terms that Elohim is plural, sometimes God is just one that they're referring to.
You find out that Adapa was created to be even higher.
So, no, Adapa wasn't created. He was actually born from Enki and a female woman. In fact, 2 women had children who had Adam and Eve, which was Adapa and Titi, and they were called Dusk and Dawn, the 2 women. And so they weren't created to be smarter. They were smarter simply because the Anunnaki physically bred as opposed to genetically bred with humans, and therefore the first civilized, as it says in the Columbian University tablets, there's 14 of them. So when Billy says that they were created to be higher, no, they wasn't. Absolutely categorically not. I defy anyone to prove the ancient tablets wrong.
Atlantis, this pre-Diluvian civilization that was so advanced.
Always be the smartest in the room. This guy's talking about the Hall of Records that he says is between the pyramid and the Sphinx. And this was before the flood. according to this guy, and he's also saying that Atlantis was before the flood. However, if you watch my pinned video with evidence, you'll see that Atlantis was actually after the flood. And also, if you go by the 14 tablets in the Columbia University that actually say that the pyramids were built after the flood, so therefore the Hall of Records wouldn't have been put there because they didn't even go to that location. The only reason why the Anunnaki went to that location is it was only dry land after the flood, as stated in these tablets. So I don't know where this guy's got his information from. I would like to see the evidence, whereas I can show the evidence this person
never repented of their violence. They never said that they were sorry for what they did to the Israelites.
Always be the smartest in the room. So this person's talking about fictional stories that may be in the Bible, and as such he's talking about a particular group that didn't say sorry, and therefore it didn't happen because he's not got any evidence of it. So the problem there is the logic says that just because you don't have text, ancient text saying that they said sorry, therefore you can't assume that they didn't say sorry verbally, or that the texts are buried. So you can't just go ahead and make up stuff. This person should have said, I assume they didn't say sorry. Because just because you've got absence of evidence doesn't mean you can make up something that may or may not have happened. And of course, if you're talking about the Bible saying that they did say it, who are you to say that they didn't? So unfortunately, logic wins, as always.
One of you all asked, which planet is the oldest? We don't know for sure?
This gentleman is right. We don't know for sure. However, we actually know which ones are the newest. And these are in tablets in the Columbia University and in the British Museum. One's called the Enuma Elish, the other one's under the Moorhan collection. And these are from the Anunnaki, which people don't seem to believe that they were here, but they actually name what planets were here previously, and then they explain that Tiamat, which was another big planet between Jupiter and Mars, got smashed into, which created the asteroid belt and created Earth. And remember, they named the planets, and so did the Greeks, before we could even see all of the planets. If you want to see evidence of this, please visit my website, www.ourtruehistory.co.uk. On the homepage, scroll down to see where it says click here, and you'll get all the evidence you need about the Anunnaki and their planets and naming planets, etc. Everything you need. One of my followers suggested I look up Michael Feely. So I've done that, but I did say to the person, please don't make me go and watch it, because if I find something wrong, I'll probably end up doing a video, because obviously I only want the evidence out there, not, stuff that people make up. So here is Michael Feely explaining orbs.
You have what is known as noospheres, which are basically the intellect of the mind. It is a sphere of human force, and of course...
So he's basically saying the spheres, the orbs, are from humans. Bear in mind, clairvoyants say that animals also have spirits. And also the other problem with this is University of Virginia have proven that reincarnation is real. So if you only have your own, then how does the next person that gets yours have their own, if then you end up with two? And of course, when that person dies, you end up with three, and before you know it, you've got 1 billion. So unfortunately, I don't agree with this. Does anyone remember this person? This was the one that said that white people don't believe that black people could have made the pyramids, and white people are suppressed, and blah, blah, blah. And she also said, we know exactly how the pyramids were built. And of course, I sent her an email saying, could you tell me how the pyramids were built? Because there's nowhere on this planet that actually says how they were built. So, of course, she didn't reply, but I emailed her, like I showed on my video. Anyway, I actually received an email from Digital Hammurabi, I probably pronounced that wrong, which was actually her. And it's basically saying that I subscribed to her newsletter and that she's going to be talking to an expert on a live chat. So I just thought it was quite interesting, the fact that I've been added to their mailing list by emailing her, and yet I'm the one that debunked her.
This is Graham Hancock. I know I don't like debunking people, but let's have a listen to what he says here. This is quite interesting.
That I would never seek to divorce the ancient Egyptians from the Great Pyramids. There are several reasons, actually. But first and foremost, I have no doubt that the ancient Egyptians were involved in completing the Great Pyramids, and there's 4 reasons for that. And that is the shafts, the so-called air shafts, that cut through the body of the Great Pyramid. They're very small. They're about that wide, that high. There are 2 of them in...
So just bear with me, I will point my points out in a sec.
the so-called King's Chamber, one on the north wall, one on the south wall. And they...
Did you see that? It didn't actually go all the way out to the outside on that image. Keep that in your mind.
always exited on the outside of the pyramid, and that was known back into the 19th century. 19th century explorers could actually climb the Great Pyramid and roll a cannonball into one of those shafts, and it would end up in the King's Chamber. So,
well, actually, that doesn't seem correct, because there was a project called I won't even try and pronounce that, where basically they found out that both shafts, Kings and Queens, do turn at a 45-degree angle going up towards the top of the pyramid, not out. And in fact, also, if that was the case, then we would be sending cameras down from the outside, not inside. If you ever watched the documentaries on the History Channel, they have to go inside the pyramid and put their remote control cameras up with wheels, whereas if you could just roll a camera down, you could quite easily put a camera inside a ball and just roll it down and then pull it back up with wire. So it's yeah, so I think he's wrong there.
Right. Obviously, they were connected. The shafts in the so-called Queen's Chamber, and I use the word so-called because we actually don't know what these chambers were for. No burial of any pharaoh was ever found inside the Great Pyramid. The so-called Queen's Chamber, the shafts don't exit on the outside of the Great Pyramid, and nor until 1872 were they visible within the Queen's Chamber itself. They'd been closed off with little facing blocks. You couldn't see that they were there. But one researcher went around tapping on the walls. He thought, there's shafts upstairs in the King's Chamber. Maybe there are here. And he found two hollow points, one on the north wall, one on the south wall, broke them open, and lo and behold, there were the concealed shafts. Now, the thing about those shafts is that all four of them point at key stars, one of them being the lowest of the three stars of Orion's belt, in the position in the sky that they occupied around 2500 BC, not 12,500 years ago.
So in other words, he's saying that these were built 2,500 years ago, when at that point everyone was writing, whereas obviously 10,000, 12,000 years ago, there was only a handful of people that could read or write, and yet no pyramids. You've got to remember also, there's 1,000 pyramids around the world, so he's now attributing this to the Egyptians, which is stupid, Graham Hancock, stupid, because you've got the Bosnian pyramids is absolutely massive and the Egyptians weren't there. So and there's pyramids, 1,000 pyramids around the world, so they would have, the architects of this would have had to have gone all the way around and done them there, or we're all just that clever. Anyway, let's carry on.
But 4,500 years ago, and that astronomical connection to the stars at that time says to me, we cannot divorce the ancient Egyptians from the Great Pyramid.
So basically he's saying because well, I'll let you play on.
But then there's a problem. The ground pattern on the three pyramids on the ground reflects the pattern of Orion's belt itself, and this is, of course...
Not so much. So I've actually done a video showing there's at least 15 other constellations that do have two stars and one off-centre. So they're assuming, and I don't like people that assume, because it makes an arse out of you and me.
No accident within the ancient Egyptian system, because the constellation of Orion was seen as the celestial image of the god Osiris, the civilization bringer, the entity who went around the world teaching civilization. That is who Osiris is, and he is seen in the sky, his image is seen in the sky as the constellation of Orion. And
so basically he's admitting that there was a god called Osiris that went round and taught people how to do things. But he's saying it was the Egyptians that built the pyramids. Now, which one is it? Is it the Egyptians or is it the god? You see my point? It just he's I think he's clutching at straws here.
One of those shafts points at Orion's belt, and another one points at Sirius, and two of them point at the circumpolar stars.
So that's only if you turn the clocks back. Again, I've done another video where I turned the clock back thousands and thousands of years ago, and my front door points to, yes, to the Draco system, which means my ancestors must have been aliens and reptilian ones at that. So basically, you can turn the clock back to any time you want, and something will be pointing at something that you want it to point to. I've already covered this in my other videos.
At the time when Egyptologists believed the pyramids were built, so there's definitely a connection, and I wouldn't seek to break it. But
there's no connection. There's no connection. So the Anunnaki could have quite easily built these pyramids 10,000, as it says so in the Columbia University tablets, 10,000 BC, just after the Great Flood, and the Anunnaki built them, which is why we've got no records of any humans building them at all, because obviously there was none. And the Sphinx was built by Ningazida for the lion because of the constellation, because at that point they started to use Earth's years as opposed to their Shah's, and so he built the lion to say this is the time period, and he put his face on it to say this is who built the pyramids. So I don't know, Graham, I think you are pandering to people. You know, if you think that the Egyptians went round to every single country and built 1,000 odd pyramids and moved the stones, etc., from 75 miles away over hills, mud, in other countries as well, by the way, and all did that for a bit of a giggle, because obviously, unless there's a reason for these pyramids, which we know there's a reason for these pyramids, but the Egyptians at the time wouldn't have known, because they probably would have thought the planet was flat at that point. So, yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I like Graham, but I think on this one he's just a bit out there. What's your thoughts?
The Y-Files video on the Anunnaki is about 95% wrong with no evidence shown. I've just done a video that is 50 minutes long showing evidence where his comments are wrong. It's on my YouTube channel if you're interested. Y-Files has sent me a message. So I did a video where I was showing that some errors in the Y-Files video, and I did actually try and contact them, but never got really a message back. Anyway, AJ's wrote, very entertaining and educational. That was to do with my video. That's on YouTube if you're interested. The Y-Files is an entertainment channel. It's supposed to be fun. I talk to a fish. My job isn't to prove anyone right or wrong. I just gather the information I can and leave it out for the viewer to decide. Sorry I missed your email, but keep up the great work. Honestly, I do love his show. I just watched the latest one yesterday. I do worry about Gertie. I don't know if she's being fed enough. If you know the Y-Files, you know what I mean. But no, it's a lovely email message. Obviously, I do get a lot of people say to me that I'm wrong because they do listen to other researchers, and of course, I have to then point out where I'm right. But that was lovely. Thank you very much. I love your show.
Evidence, proof about what's being done.
Long story short, this person mentioned Tatarian Empire. I said there is no evidence that there was a Tatarian Empire that had advanced technology. Show me the evidence. That's what I asked for. He just did a video. So to the person that just done the video, I kind of still need the evidence. It's nice that you did a nice little 3-minute video, but when I asked for the evidence, I kind of meant I needed to see evidence, not nothing. Sorry, don't hate me. It's just everything I do goes by evidence, and of course you've done a stitched video with my comment to make me look like you're finally giving the evidence, but in your video there is no evidence. So I kind of still need the evidence. So until that happens, the only Tatarian Empire was the Mongolian one 500 years ago. So there's no evidence still. No one's given me any evidence for an advanced modern Tatarian race.
Sitchin was incorrect about basically everything he wrote about.
Person's just done a stitch with one of my comments where I said Zachariah Sitchin was correct, and this person seems to think that he knows more than me. And the reason why I know he doesn't is because if you scroll down on my website to where it says click here in big blue letters, you'll be taken to a video, and that video shows that Zachariah Sitchin actually copied older translations. He didn't translate it himself. So when this person's saying that Zachariah Sitchin's wrong, no, he actually used these translations. There's one here from, I think, 1921. And so I go through on this video proving that what Zachariah Sitchin said was already translated in other by other people from 200 years ago upwards. So to the person that done that video, watch this video and with evidence show me where my evidence is wrong. We are de-evolving. So this gentleman here, I'll just play a bit of the video and you'll see what I'm on about. You know that Ragnarok actually already happened about 10,000 BC. I can show you.
My man, please do not come up with fake evidence. Okay, this is firstly fake. The reason why I can tell you is because none of these things have actually been proven.
So he's saying that where I offer evidence, which he clearly didn't go and watch, he's saying that in order for something to be real, it has to be proven. So in other words, I'm the person that's proven it, so someone has to prove it, and hands up, I've done it. So he's not looked at it because no one else has said it's been done. So in other words, if someone can actually prove something, this guy will never ever look at it because he needs someone else, and yet the other person he won't look at it either. Oh, help. Don't hate me for this. One of my followers asked me to watch a video because he's fed up with people that don't actually do proper research, so he wanted me to look at it and show where the errors are.
That the RH negative people are the survivors of the Atlantean civilization. They're the descendants of the survivors of Atlantis, because the concentration of the RH negative blood type is in that area.
So first of all, the problem is this guy would then need to have the control of an Atlantis person, in other words, the blood type control, to know that the RH negative come from there. So all he's done is assumed that because there's RH negative in a clump, therefore it belongs to Atlanteans, which we know is not how you do research. Anyway, the actual most area that has the highest concentration of RH negative is the Basque, which is in Spain, just up here. Now you could say, okay, well maybe Atlantis is there, because he did say that it was in the same area as Atlantis. So have we got any Atlantis people saying anything from there? We've got all of these places that people say that is Atlantis. Unfortunately, none of those actually have a city that's sunken with Thoth's temple, because Thoth was an Atlantean. None of them's got any of that, except for me. Now, I've already done my homework, and if you click on my profile name at the top there, my image, and just go to here, yes, I actually show you with evidence where Atlantis is, and it is not where the Basque people are. So in fairness to the gentleman that did the video, he does at the end sort of caveat himself by adding the word "all gods." And so yes, the Anunnaki were the ones that physically bred with the Homo sapiens to create Homo sapiens sapiens. Every day I get asked to look at other researchers' videos, and the reason why is because none of those show evidence. Obviously my videos do. So people are starting to wake up and say, hang on a minute, these people just talk, whereas our true history actually shows. So then they start sending me these videos and saying, can you have a look and tell me whether this person's correct? Because obviously they don't know whether this person's correct, because this person doesn't offer any evidence, which I always do. So let's just have a look at this person. The name of this person is called, I won't even try and pronounce it, Ashiana. Yeah, I can't pronounce stuff. Okay, so let's have a listen and see whether or not this person knows what they're talking about.
We did not come out of the apes. They came out of us.
So, okay, so she said that. Now, the earliest Homo sapiens was 300,000 years ago. The earliest Homo sapiens sapiens is around 160, but it's not. It's actually 100,000. The mainstream just doesn't seem to quite get their dates right 100%. However, let's have a look at when any of these modern apes that came from us, and basically none of them even come close to the dates that the would be around for us, except for us. You get the idea. So unfortunately this lady's wrong on that account. Let's have a listen to some more. Sorry, I'm just going through her video, and wow, she enough waffles.
There's an agenda. There are probable versions of what any species can evolve into, but there's also a primary version of what a species was intended to become.
So it's 4 minutes so far of her saying stuff that actually doesn't really mean anything, and I thought my videos were slow paced, and I really do try and fire out the old information. So this lady says that she gets information from the Guardians. Now, this is alien race. Now, my problem with that, as always, is people have gone missing and disappeared for seeing UFOs. In other words, for saying, I've seen a UFO, I've seen an alien. So any researchers, in my opinion, don't hate me for saying this, but any researchers, in my opinion, that claim they get actual information about our solar system and technologies, etc., such as Bashar and this person here, I'm surprised that the government haven't picked them up, if you get what I'm saying, the secret government. So anyway, so this person says that they get the information from aliens. Let's have a listen here.
The energy systems are what is called the cosmic matrix. At the center of the cosmic matrix And this is a center that we will not find no matter how far we send out a rocket ship into space.
So the problem with this is obviously I can't verify what she's saying here because she's lucky enough to be chosen by the aliens to explain all of these details, which is very nice of them. You know, I wouldn't have the time to go to another planet and, do you know what I mean, and pick one particular person and hope that that person gets a platform to be able to share the information that I've shared with that person. It's a very thin line because unless you're very famous, it's very difficult to find someone that can actually, I mean, I'm, you know, the foremost expert in these paranormal things and ancient aliens, etc., and yet YouTube suppresses my videos, and I've proven that. So if an alien was to help me and give me this information, it wouldn't do much because YouTube. So this lady here is very lucky that she seems to be having people in front of her that's actually probably paying to go and see her.
We are all composed of particles that are conscious units of the unified, which means we are all composed of particles of the consciousness of God. And
okay, so she just said consciousness of God, and obviously we know for a fact, and if you're interested in the evidence of that, all you have to do is go to my website, ourtruehistory.co.uk, and find out that God was actually a Anunnaki. So unfortunately, this lady straight away, from my opinion, as soon as you mention the word God, you know that she doesn't really know what she's talking about because the race name of gods belong to the Anunnaki. Now, if she said something else, if she said source or creation, fine, I wouldn't have had a problem. But if you watch my documentary, the race name for the Anunnaki was gods. So she's now just quoted the Anunnaki, which is wrong. So I think you can probably guess where I'm going to go. So there's no point in going any further on this lady's video.
Or the Rishot structure. Yeah, this one's been beaten to death by all the Atlantis hunters, but it does.
There's so many people that say the Rishot structure is where Atlantis is, and they quote Plato. The problem is, for everything that they quote Plato, I can quote 3 things from Plato that doesn't make it Atlantis. However, it's not even a sunken city. It's not even sunken. So if anyone is interested in where the actual real evidence of Atlantis is, watch my pinned video on Atlantis. I actually have a sunken city in concentric circles with Thoth's temple on it, and it sank at exactly the right time. And in fact, there's 14 other points showing exactly why the place that I say is Atlantis is Atlantis. It's a city. It's off the, you know, it's an actual island as well. Whereas obviously the Rishot structure was part of the mainland. So yeah, feel free, watch it. It's on my pinned videos, and finally learn the evidence.
The work of the Ijiji. So these Ijiji beings, these were worker people. They were volunteers. They weren't supposed to be enslaved, but they...
So in other words, he's saying they were enslaved because they weren't supposed to be enslaved. Unfortunately, there's no evidence whatsoever that they were enslaved. In fact, I'll show you who they were in a moment.
They arrived here about 450,000 years.
So it's actually 442,000 years ago when the Anunnaki the first arrived. That's based off of the shards that they talk about 10,000 BC. So then you've got to add the 10,000 BC from then to now. So you work out 442,000 years ago. But the Ijiji didn't actually turn up when the first Anunnaki turned up. They did turn up later. That obviously there was the first 50 Anunnaki. So you're looking at another 3,600 years, give or take, before the Ijiji turned up.
Years ago, they worked for about 250,000 years, laboring, building a break.
So this is the period between when the Ijiji started work in South Africa. They didn't go to... Billy's going to say in a minute that they were on Mars. They did go to Mars later, but they had to start mining first in South Africa to use Mars as an away station. They didn't go to Mars straight away.
Breakaway civilization on Earth and Mars, which is why there's so many anomalies.
No, there wasn't a breakaway civilization. They were actually working with the elder gods. So the Ijiji were the sons of gods, and I'll prove that in a second using his own words.
On Mars. And then what happened was they decided to go to war against God, Anu, the head of the gods, Anu, Enki, and Enlil. So they fell from heaven to earth. They left Mars, came...
No, unfortunately, they were already in South Africa when they came to... the whole point of when they left Mars was later on when the Ejiji, which was who he's referring to, when they found out that Marduk was going to marry a Homo sapien, in other words, an offspring off of one of the Anunnakis that was breeding with the Homo sapiens that they'd created already. Marduk ended up wanting to marry one of them because these were more intelligent ones, the Homo sapiens sapiens. And so the Ejiji, who were on Mars way later, obviously, they decided that they wanted some women as well, and that's when they came down. So unfortunately, he's sort of amalgamated the two periods when they're two distinct periods. So this is what he's actually talking about, is where they're in South Africa and they went to Enlil's domain house, which is in the Archaeology, where Enlil and Enki and a few of the other Anunnaki gods were there, and they basically agreed that the Enki should create a first human. So this is why I say he's unfortunately got it wrong there.
Down to earth in the Epic of Atrahasis, they went to South Africa to a place called Adam's Calendar, and they encircled the camp of Enki, Anu, and...
So, as far as I'm aware, the Atrahasis says that it goes to Enlil's actual house, and he never had a house in South Africa, which is where Adam's Calendar is. So again, slightly wrong there.
Lil, and I read this tablet online one day. This is like, there's a rabble at my door. There's a rabble at my door. What does this mean? And these were the Ejiji coming, banging on the door, getting ready to go to war.
So what he's actually referring to here is this here, which is the Atrahasis. And there's a rabble at my door. There you go. See that? Now, the Ejiji were the sons of God. Now, I prove that 100% on my website, ourtruehistory.co.uk. You can get to it on YouTube, but on my website, homepage, scroll down where it says click here, you'll see all the evidence that the Anunnaki were the elder gods and the Ejiji were the younger ones. And here, in fact, in the same Atrahasis, it says here, why do you fear your own sons? So once again, it proves that the Ejiji were the younger gods. Whoops, I'll get to him in a minute on another video where he's completely wrong as well. So where was we?
I often get sent pictures of what are purported to be, and what to our eye looks like, some sort of serpentine feminine figure, some sort of figurine or idol or something from Mesopotamia, with some note about, here's an Anunnaki. The Anunnaki are the reptilian race that control.
He's correct there. People do believe that that statue was the Anunnaki. Unfortunately, there's only 4 of them that I've ever found, and we actually have tens of thousands of actual figurines and carvings, etc., of the Anunnaki that do not look anything like. They just look like us. We're in their image, by the way. So, yes, I agree. Silly people out there have looked at those and thought they were the Anunnaki, all 4 of the carvings, when we've got tens of thousands actually showing what they really, really look like. But let's carry on, because there's a bit more to this mystery.
Controls the planet, yada, yada, yada. Well, these figures are actually very well known. They are from, in many cases, a site called Ubaid, or the Jemdet Nasser period in Mesopotamian art.
He's on about the Ubaid period, if you know it as that name as well.
Archaeology. The problem for the ancient astronaut theorist is that all of these figurines are prehistoric. Google Ubaid.
So in other words, he goes on to say that there's no evidence there that that particular type of figurine, the ones with the squashed faces, is wrong, or is connected to the Anunnaki, should I say. And he's correct. There is nothing to connect them with the Anunnaki, because there's no writings for those 4 carvings. They are in museums, in fact. Now, this is where the mystery gets funny, because if you go along here towards the end of the video,
evidence that connects them in any way with the Anunnaki. And so this is another point that Sitchin has literally invented.
So Zachariah Sitchin never ever said that this carving here was the Anunnaki. In fact, if you actually watch videos, Mr. S. Heiser, with Zachariah Sitchin, if you bother, you'll find that Zachariah Sitchin had said that he believes this was a female Anunnaki, where the actual clay ended up getting squashed. That's why there's only 4 of them, as opposed to the tens of thousands of images of the Anunnaki. So where you're trying here in your video, where you've got 188,000 subscribers, and 12,000 views in 6 days, whereas my videos actually get blocked by YouTube and Google because one of us, I'm not going to name names, one of us tells the truth and the other one makes up crap. So Zachariah Sitchin did never, ever say that that was one of the Anunnaki. So there's your first problem. Second problem is I've also done many videos with you or showing videos where you're in error on my website and on TikTok, etc. So you do make a hell of a lot of errors. And that's because you are a biblical scholar who does not want the Anunnaki. Now, if you actually go and research where he studied, I'm not going to say it now, I've already done videos, but you'll trace back to a certain family that funds that university. Anyway, so now here is a carving of Enki in the Iraq Museum. Here is a cylinder seal of Enki in the British Museum, and he's the god of water, which is represented there. In fact, if you're interested, there's good old Inanna with a lion, bless her. I'm not quite sure who these are. This might be Nurgle. But anyway, so if I can only connect, there you are, EA, which was the original name for Enki. So if I could just connect Enki with the word Anunnaki, then we actually do have carvings of these Anunnaki, which is what he says we don't really have. Or I know he was only talking about that, but we do have carvings of the Anunnaki. Well, funny enough, here in the Art Trahasis, which is in the British Museum, it talks about the Igigi, which were the sons of God that went after Enlil because they were working too hard and they wanted help. And so here it says Enlil sends for King Anu to be brought down to you, have Enki fetched into our presence, and he sent for Anu to be brought down. Enki was fetched to his presence. Anu, king of the sky, was present. Enki, king of the Apsu, attended. So in other words, the great Anunnaki were present, ready. And that was what they were. In fact, there's another version of this where Nimna was there already, but and there's a few others there. Look, there's a few other people that Anunnaki that were already there. So in other words, the great Anunnaki, meaning the first three, at least, which was King Anu, Enki, and Enlil, were present. Therefore, we have the name Anunnaki in ancient texts. They were the great ones because they were the main leaders, and we have many thousands of carvings. Literally, you just type in Enki carving, and yeah, you got thousands of them. So now we know who they look like and what they look like, and no, they're not reptilian, as Heisen said. However, the Anunnaki were like us. Sorry if I sound distracted, but yeah, so there you go. So once again, either follow someone like him who TikTok, YouTube allows to have his videos up where he's completely wrong, or follow someone like me who...
Many of them made you believe they were gods and allowed...
This is where I have to shut him down for good, really. Sorry. So the Anunnaki didn't make us believe they were gods because we wouldn't have known what gods were. They could have said they were Superman or Spider-Man or anything. We wouldn't know what a god was. There was no god. In fact, their race name, Anunnaki's race name, is God. So there is no way they would have pretended to be a god because we wouldn't have known what a god was. They created us. Bashar says they created us. So there's no way they needed to pretend they were gods if they've created us. Because we wouldn't know what a freaking god was.
One author. God is the author, but a lot of people transcribe.
Okay. Amen. So there's a huge problem here because I go by evidence, and this person will have absolutely zero evidence that an almighty being wrote the Bible or authored the Bible. He may have got scribes. Now, the problem there is I've already proven with 100% proof that the Anunnaki were the gods in the Bible. In fact, that's their race name. The Anunnaki had many different scribes, and the Anunnaki were many. So in other words, there was more than just one God, as it says in the Bible, Genesis 1:26, even the word Elohim. But I've proven 100%. If you want the evidence, just go to my website, ourtruehistory.co.uk, scroll down on the homepage to where it says click here in blue. So we need to go by facts. There is no fact that this person has and will ever have that one single deity authored the Bible, but we do have many authors, as proven by myself.
Evidence is the reason there's no fossils of dragons is because they had bird bones, and they were actually...
The reason why I struggle with this is because the gentleman's saying that there is no dragon bones because they would have been like bird bones, which you can't fossilize, apparently. That's like me saying there's no Superman because I haven't seen him. You can't just say there were dragons, and the reason why we don't know about the dragons is because they were something else that won't show us any evidence that they were dragons. So I don't know. I mean, is evidence now just because we don't have it and you can say it was something else? Is that how evidence works nowadays? Because I'm going to be out of a job if we can just make up stuff by saying, well, a dragon was really a bird, and birds don't, a big bird which was a dragon, but their bones don't fossilize, so therefore they were real, but we can't see them.
Here to cause a blue sky, it's black, but you cannot see stars.
So this gentleman's talking about from space, for example, the International Space Station, you won't be able to see any stars because someone asked him for photographs of proper photographs from NASA, because we know NASA lie. And he's coming out with the fact that apparently you can't see stars. Now, Chris Hadfield, who was in the International Space Station, used to talk about the marvellous stars that they could see. In fact, you can actually see better without atmosphere. The stars are actually brighter. Where do these people come from? I'm guessing he works for NASA or is part of something to do with NASA.